switch off. Ferreira says the analog switch off will have a dire impact on the broadcast ecosystem.
My client is concerned about a rich and vibrant ecosystem of expression in which a range of different views and a variety of sources of different information can be received by the public. And what my client says is that if you switch off analog transmission before a sufficient number of audience members have managed to migrate to be able to receive digital transmission, you will devastate the operations of these broadcasters.
Hamas officials say Israeli airstrikes have killed more than 400 people across Gaza, including the group's heads of government and security. The attacks are by far the largest since a ceasefire began in January. The Israeli military has warned Palestinians on the edges of Gaza to evacuate. The BBC's Yolande Nels has the details.
We're getting, from a list circulating, initial reports of several senior Hamas security and political officials among those who were killed, along with members of their families. And, you know, there's footage that's already coming through to us, very grim indeed, that shows entire families have been killed, that there are children and babies who are among those killed. Hospitals in Gaza have been struggling after more than 2 weeks now, where Israel has blocked all humanitarian aid going into Gaza. That's included food, but also medicines and the fuel the hospitals need to run generators.
Recapping the top story, the fight against crime in Gauteng has been bolstered. The Gauteng Community Safety Department has been allocated over 2 billion rand for the 2025-26 financial year. I am Wanda Lambara for SFM News Headlines at 3:30.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Team South Africa to represent at World Indoors. New Zealand crushed Pakistan by 5 wickets, and Indian Welsh tournament sets attendance record. More details at 3:30.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.1 FM in Johannesburg.
It was fast, easy, and he gave me the best quote. My savings is 644 rand. Come join our insurance and save some money.
Nice one, Lebo. Saving 644 Rand a month on your 2019 Mazda CX-3 would also make you so happy you might drop a beat. Outsurance clients know what it feels like to be on the winning side. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Switch and save today. Outsurance is always looking for ways to save you money. They are also committed to settling valid claims fairly and quickly. No hassles.
You know your claim is going to be taken care of and you've got support along the journey.
SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Stunks and Negati are in a big search for their first win, while the indomitable Lions want to hold on to the summit of Group D. The bottom of the table clashes with the top. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Experience the joy of African football. Eswatini versus Cameroon. This Wednesday, 19 March at 6 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
It's always, hey, choose my kettle. It's this or that, Baba. But why? Why can't I service my car and pay for my wedding service as well? With a Nedbank personal loan, that's a rhetorical question because I can do both with access of up to 400,000 Rand at the best interest rate that is customized for me.
Don't let cash flow hold you back. Apply for your Nedbank personal loan online today. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So, lots happening in the world as the budget speech in the Gauteng region. That ceasefire between Israel and Palestine does not hold, and massive amounts of deaths overnight. perhaps we can talk about that too. And then the ongoing issue regarding Ibrahim Rasool and different aspects of it is something that we will talk about too. And there's more. When I say more, there's an update on some of the other big issues that we need to touch on, including the issues of 9 people, now I understand, have been to court now regarding issues of potential corruption regarding the SASSA grants and the funding around that issue. Big issue there indeed, okay? My name's Ashraf Garda. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the National Pulse. I wonder what you think will be the biggest issue that moves the National Pulse today. You can answer that, in fact, by tweeting right away. Just take SFM Radio and myself, Ashraf Garda. Use the hashtag The National Pulse. I'll check it out. You'll then have the option to WhatsApp, text or voice note 0614 104 107. We'll take your calls as well. Not quite now. We'll do that later on. But you can certainly answer and guess what you think would be the biggest issue that moves the National Pulse right away. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to start with chatting to Professor Patrick Bond, who's a political economist and expert on international relations at the University of Johannesburg. Prof. Bond, good to chat with you as always. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Oh, it's great to be back with you and the listeners. Thanks, Asher.
Thank you. Now, we talk to you because there's been a countdown, and we need to cover that countdown of the return now of Ibrahim Rasool, former South African ambassador to the United States. And then, of course, when he comes in, we'll see, I'm expecting a flood of people, certainly media, at the airport. Then there'll be the briefing that he would give to the president, and then we'll hear all about that. So that issue clearly is not going to go away, isn't it? But there's lots to consider around that, because I think part of that, and we touched on it yesterday, is, was he diplomatic or not, Ibrahim Rasool, by what he said? And you have your answer to that one, yes, no. But perhaps the most powerful issue to consider is, have you actually gone through all the things he said? And was he right in what he said? He may not be diplomatic, but was he right in what he said? We'll talk about that. I certainly want to get your thoughts, but we get the opinions of Professor Patrick Bond as well. In fact, while we're talking to you, Prof. Bond, is to pick up a quote that you actually gave to a media house called the African, right? And I think you said something that is so powerful that's going to be the basis of where we start with this conversation, right? And this is what it says, right? You said that's the signal, referring to the expulsion of Ibrahim Rasool, that's a signal that they will be bullies. They will get away with it. They will throw out an ambassador for simply being honest. All the African continent should stand up against this bullying. Prof. Bond? Yeah?
Yes.
You feel strongly about that?
I stand by that. But even more so, we're seeing a fracturing of our own society where people are taking sides that is very revealing. And I think the desperation that so many, for example, in my own circuits, the chattering classes, the sort of aspiring international, sort of, we want to be able to travel back and forth. We don't want to see South Africa added to that brand new list of about 40 countries, visa requirements. And that means I think there's a real nervousness that the bully not only did get away with expelling, but should, and that we should therefore be very, very sensitive and tentative and maybe, again, invite Donald Trump for a game of golf, and even though he cheats. And maybe we should offer up offshore gas and oil, as President Ramaphosa offered 2 weeks ago. In other words, to be transactional, to try to throw things to this very, very rabid dog and hope that it'll chew away on them and turn in either direction. The other view, though, is that we should collectively stand up, and not simply stand up alone and be bullied, but also have a strategy of new alliances. And I think I would push in that direction. And that Ibrahim Rasool, even though we're going to see fracturing of our society, and many people listening to this right now will shake their head and say, that's way too risky. Nevertheless, everybody in the world, Ashraf, I'm sure you're picking this up, is feeling the same irritation or frustration or fear or loathing about not just Trump, but about Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, who once called Trump the world's biggest con man, or J.D. Vance, who once termed Trump America's Hitler, or Elon Musk, or this whole group. I mean, they throw around insults that make Ibrahim Rasool look like a real gentleman.
Well, I mean, are you surprised that South Africans are fractured around this issue?
No, we have such fractures that are partly race, and of course the predominant standpoint of the old apartheid nostalgics will be pro-Trump. There's no question. That's a fairly powerful current in the society, and you sort of see it in not just Afroform, but you see it in amongst the well-off whites. But there's also conservatism, I think, around the foreign policy establishment, and they really are taking Rasool to task, no matter that secretly they may well agree that his critique of the sort of racist international, the supremacism that is traveling now at rapid pace around the world.
Well,
so we'd all be nervous about it, but they don't want to rock the boat.
All right.
But there is...
Let me pause. I'm going to come back to you on some of that as well. Let's go back to where it all started. When I say started last night, in fact, after we finished the show, the U.S. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce effectively then gave like official reason why Ibrahim Rasool was expelled. And this is what she said.
It's not about criticism. This was the equation of the president and the country with white supremacy. It was an allegation that casts such an awful light on the nature of the country, on individuals. It is. I mean, if we don't have a standard about the nature of someone who is in this country, who is supposed to be a diplomat to help facilitate the relationship between two countries, and that this is the standard of it, we deserve better. We've had a decent level of diplomacy with South Africa. There are some challenges, but you want people in each embassy who can actually facilitate a relationship. And these remarks were unacceptable to the United States, not just to the president, but to every American. They were pretty much obscene when it came to the nature of what was alleged. So that is, I think, at the very least, what we should expect is a standard of some respect, basic, low-level respect, if you're in a position that is going to help facilitate any kind of diplomatic relationship with another country. This particular individual certainly didn't meet that standard, and it is a message to people of what America expects, what the president expects, what the Secretary of State expects, what this whole administration expects when it comes to treatment of the nation itself and as a result of the people in this country. And so that's why it was done.
Okay, some may say, again, what does South Africa expect when we have an American ambassador in this country spewing a whole lot of lies around our relationship with arms supply to Russia? But let's go back to you, Patrick Bond. I mean, the key part you talk about is diplomatic bullying. So why do you think this is bullying when many say, in fact, Ibrahim Rasool, in effect, was undiplomatic? We can talk about the content just now, but he wasn't very wise in saying what he said based in the USA. So undiplomatic on the one hand, and you saying diplomatic bullying. Why diplomatic bullying?
Well, actually, if you listen to the whole presentation, he was actually quite conservative. He, for example, told the listeners in the small seminar in the Malcolm Gugwe Institute in Sandton, but also a few online, he said basically, don't be pushing ideas like de-dollarization. That was one that the BRICS had floated around here in Sandton in 2023. It was a rage, and the president of Brazil, Lula, anticipates picking it up in early July when he hosts the BRICS. And there's Rasool saying, don't even think about it, don't even say such things. So I actually got a more balanced and mixed reading by listening to the whole, which I hope all your listeners can do. It's on YouTube. And I think then the question, particularly because, as you say, the prior U.S. ambassador to South Africa, Ruben Brigetti, had gone way overboard in May 2023, making an accusation saying, I'm prepared to die. He said, I'll bet my life on it, precisely. He never committed suicide, thank goodness. But that accusation that South Africa was uploading arms to a Russian ship for Lady R, he could never prove. And an investigation said, well, actually, there was a bit of downloading of AK-47s destined for Mozambique, but nothing that you can pin South Africa aside from some food going onto that ship. Now, those are the little spats, but they shouldn't lead to an expulsion. And the ambassador, Rasool, had actually served during the Zuma administration from 2010 to 14 as a very effective ambassador to Washington. So I don't know really what singling out an individual is meant to do, aside from just saying, well, we can kick people out of the country as we see fit, and we're in a mass deportation wave.
Okay, very, very quickly, what do you make of the South African response, both from, whether it's international relations or the president?
Well, terribly inadequate. I'd be on the side of those who, I think many of your listeners, not all, will say Donald Trump needs to hear this, speaking truth to power, even though it was a tiny seminar, and I'm sure they didn't expect this reaction. But the sense that Donald Trump and his people are putting so much weight on this, and that South Africa doesn't find a way to stand up and put it into the proper context. Number one, that it's true that there is a problem with the racist international. I think the EFF was a little wild in saying, that there's a KKK and the world grand wizard is Donald Trump. That's a bit much, but there is a problem of Steve Bannon and Musk promoting these far right forces around the world with the intent to roll back social progress. But I think Ramaphosa is also managing a G20, and he has a choice at some point. I hope he takes a more, let's say, ambitious line, and instead of countering,
So-
maybe we need a G19 and to toss the US out and to put the G20 in Mexico next year. How would that be?
Yeah, that would be something to consider, isn't it? Right. Now, he said so much in that in the Mistra piece. I would suggest everybody reads the whole thing, and if I get a chance, I'll read some of it later on. I don't have enough time, but I'll pick up perhaps the most significant one, and I just want to get your comments whether you think that Ebrahim Rasool may or may not be diplomatic, but is he correct in this statement, right? So this is what he said. I think what Donald Trump is launching is an assault on incumbency. Those who are in power by mobilizing a supremacism against the incumbency at home, and I think I've illustrated abroad as well. So in terms of that supremacist assault on incumbency, we see it in the domestic politics of the USA, the MAGA movement, as a response not simply to a supremacist instinct, but to a very clear data that shows great demographic shifts in the USA, in which the voting electorate is projected to become 48% white, and that the possibility of a majority of minorities is looming on the horizon. Now, I'll tell you what I'll do. Let's get a quick response from you right after this.
Jazz lovers, the wait is over. Africa's grandest gathering returns on the 25th to the 26th of April at the Cape Town International Convention Center. Experience 2 nights of soul-stirring jazz, electrifying collaborations, and over 30 world-class artists across 4 iconic stages. Don't miss this unforgettable musical experience. Get your tickets now at ticketmaster.co.za. Brought to you by Independent Media, proud media partner of the Cape Town International Jazz Festival.
Something big is coming. 6:30 will never be the same. Amalanga Wafani, only on SABC 1.
This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us. Because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Right, has your medical aid gone up this year? Well, the answer is yes. That does not mean that you have to pay more for your car insurance too. Get a quote, and if OUTsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 rands in cash. And make that 1,500 rands if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. SMS OUT to 30754. That's out to 30754. With OUTsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, Professor Bond, I read out that telling quote. The question is Ebrahim Rasool on the mark with that quote, or is he off the mark?
No, he's on, and we just have to translate that jargon. I mean, diplomats, academics, we have terrible jargon. Let me throw three more words, you don't mind. Paleoconservatism is the challenge, right? That's the ideology of this Paleolithic, Stone Age kind of old-fashioned, reactionary and isolationist, xenophobic, Islamophobic, sexist, all that sort of politics you see with Trump. Second, what the incumbency that Rasool is referring to would be a combination. You've heard these terms: neoliberal, that's the free market, pro-corporate ideology, and neoconservative, and that's that ideology George Bush made famous by imposing democracy everywhere around the world, through the barrel of a gun. That's the fusion that I think has worked for U.S. power since the early 2000s. And that's exactly what I think Rasool feels is being undermined. Because, for example, to have Volodymyr Zelensky humiliated in the Oval Office of the White House a couple of weeks ago is an attack on the incumbency of the Biden, but also a George Bush type of republicanism that would have always supported Ukraine against Russia. So these are big ideological fights.
Okay, we're going to leave those ideological fights there. Thanks for your time. Lots to consider based upon that conversation. Appreciate you giving your thoughts today, Professor Patrick Bond. And welcome comments from you, the audience, commenting on what was just said, that in fact this is diplomatic bullying.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Right, let's talk about another big issue as part of the Global Watch. The M23 group, or some call it the rebels, others say the group, have pulled out of peace talks with the government of the DRC after the European Union imposed sanctions on its leader and on Rwandan army commanders. On the other hand, Rwanda has cut diplomatic ties with Belgium. Now, keep in mind as well that part of that of the peace talks was the SADC region, including South Africa, with our armies pulling out of that region too. So what now for that region? Let's get the thoughts of the African Affairs commentator, Charles Nyokonge. Appreciate your time, Charles. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and thank you to your listeners.
Right, so Charles, what now?
What now with the M23 pulling out of the negotiations? I think that the M23, what they are doing is a strategic move. In part because negotiations as they were, you don't negotiate from a weak point. If the M23 has to sign a deal, a political deal, right now with the DRC in which there's any kind of ceasefire, that ceasefire is always going to be handicapped by the fact that their leader is somewhere on a wanted list. So if the international community is serious about resolving the conflict in the DRC, amnesty cannot be taken out of the table, including the recognition that all parties have actually violated human rights grossly.
Okay, so the fact that they've pulled out of the peace talks, I mean, would you see it as a gambit, therefore, to actually get the peace talks going, as per the comment you made regarding the European Union, or you think it's going to be much more long-term than that?
In any case, peace is not an event, Ashraf. Peace is a process, and this is just part of the complications in the peace process, where the different negotiators or disputants ask for different things. What M23 is asking for in this case is not something which is unusual. You cannot be negotiating with somebody who the next day is actually going to be throwing you over in jail. And that's exactly what the M23 is saying, that if we have a free and fair conversation, if we want to build the Congo, if we want to take full ownership, then we have to take accountability for all our role in the destruction of the country, and we have to think together about how we can build the country.
And I think there's examples of that both in terms of the relationship between Israel and Palestine regarding whether it's the PLO on the one end or and then Hamas on the other, and of course I think South Africa when before negotiations started that those leaders in exile, mainly from the ANC, but also the PAC as well, absolutely demanded amnesty. So I think your point is valid there. Let's move on to the other part, which is why has Rwanda then cut off ties with the Belgians?
Rwanda has cut off ties with the Belgians because the ambassador of Belgium has made statements which are diplomatically sensitive, just like you are talking right now with the other analysts. The comments of Rasool have actually, or Rasool has led the US to kind of put ties with South Africa on thaw. Rwanda has gotten to that point as well with Belgium. Belgium making threats about Rwanda's involvement in the DRC, which is not particularly welcomed in that context, or sensitively so. And so Rwanda has taken the position that the Belgian ambassador has to leave the country.
So therefore, then, what do you think needs to happen next? I mean, we don't really know. I understand that. What needs to happen?
What needs to happen is that the international community has come to terms with the fact that the problems of the Congo benefit the Congolese less, benefit everyone, and that Rwanda is perhaps a scapegoat. Yes, Rwanda may perhaps be the route that resources are channeled out of the Congo. We're not very sure about that with certainty, except that the report of the UN Security Council panel of experts has indicated that Rwanda has supported M23 militarily and strategically. To the extent that it is so, there are people who are benefiting out of the Congo's confusion. Our cell phones, our laptops are manufactured elsewhere. The chips in the cell phones and the laptops are manufactured elsewhere, and most of them leave from the DRC, without the DRC benefiting from this. So those in the international community who benefit from this with a blind eye should actually come to terms with the fact that we have to speak truth to ourselves and help the Congolese without benefiting from their resources.
Okay, and lastly, while this is playing out, I made the point in the intro that the SADC region is actually withdrawn, or they plan to withdraw all their troops, including South Africa, from that region. This, of course, was on the premise that peace talks would have started.
I think that's the right decision because, first of all, when they deployed to the region, they did not consult all the parties to the conflict. They did not consult, for instance, M23, as it were. Now M23 is only being seen as a major stakeholder because M23 has proven to be powerful. They did not consult Rwanda. They did not consult Uganda, as it were. But on the contrary, when Rwanda wanted to deploy soldiers, for instance, in Mozambique, Rwanda consulted with all the SADC leaders. So to have shown Rwanda the disrespect that they did, Rwanda had made it very clear that SADC had actually taken sides in a conflict that they had little understanding of. And I think that this tactical withdrawal also gives an opportunity for the disputants to actually sit and find a way forward.
Okay, key word there, key phrase, tactical withdrawal. Charles Nyakonge, I appreciate your time. African Affairs commentator, telling it as he sees it in that region, Rwanda and the DRC. Let's get the news headlines. It just go on 3:30.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, the Gauteng government says the fight against crime in Gauteng has been bolstered, with the Community Safety Department being allocated over 2 billion rand for the 2025-26 financial year. The body of a male nurse who had been reported kidnapped has been found floating in the Mutsipiri River near Jane First in Limpopo. And Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiga had urged Russia to agree unconditionally to a 30-day ceasefire to show it really wants peace. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 westbound in Crown has delays towards Main Reef Road, the N14 westbound in Lanseria, queuing towards the R512 Malibongwe Drive exit, and the N12 R24 westbound in Bedfordview has a crash reported before Giluli's interchange, queuing traffic on both routes. In KZN, the N3 westbound in Pietermaritzburg queuing towards Market Road, the N2 southbound is queuing towards Spaghetti Junction, and the N3 westbound has a crash reported at the M13 Paradise Valley exit. In Cape Town, Batencroft Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway. Victoria Road slow moving through Camps Bay. Main Road northbound is slow moving approaching Central Muizenberg, and Govan Becky Road in Nyanga slow moving at Danafontein Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, to me, I know it's a World Cup weekend, but I mean, what else is there to talk about?
We're talking all things athletics first. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Well, Team South Africa flew out to Nanjing this morning with 5 SA athletes to fly the South African flag high at the World Indoor Championships this weekend. Akani Simbini will compete in the men's 60 meter, where he is ranked number 2 in the world and the highest ranked entrant in the championships. Prudence Khodiso will compete in the women's 800 meter, where she's ranked 4th. Now, the 23-year-old set a new national indoor record of 1 minute 59.88 seconds in France last month, breaking the mark twice. Now, she is determined to lower it even further at the upcoming world event in China.
Well, the experience was amazing. Like I said, the 2 records, come on. I went there with that mentality of breaking that SA record because it was just 206. So it's been there for nothing. So I broke it and I came back with the SA record, and yeah, now heading to the World Indoor Champs, hoping to break another SA record.
South Africa's other 3 representatives are Chaswell Johnson in the men's long jump, Chris van Niekerk in the men's shot put, and Marouane Fourie in the women's 60-meter hurdles. In cricket, New Zealand beat Pakistan by 5 wickets to go 2-0 up in their T20 series. The home side reached 137 for 5 with 11 balls to spare to take control of the 5-match series after Pakistan posted 135 for 9 of 15 overs in a rain-reduced second match. New Zealand's highlight was the opening stand between Tim Seifert and Finn Allen, in which 7 of their first 8 scoring shots were sixes. In football, Bafana coach Hugo Broos has been forced to make another change in his side, with Aubrey Modiba forced to leave due to his wife giving birth. Sekhukhune United left-back Vuyo Letlapa has been called up as his replacement. Meanwhile, Broos has praised the people of Polokwane for their warm reception as the national team arrived in camp for the next 2 FIFA World Cup qualifiers against Lesotho and Benin. Now, Bafana started the camp yesterday at the ranch just outside Polokwane, with a full complement of the squad having arrived in camp, including Lyle Foster and the return of Percy Tau.
I have to say that for the moment I'm very happy to be here in this fantastic location. It's quiet here, good training pitches, people who knows how to receive a football team. So I think there we can't have any problem on that. Secondly, I think it's a long time ago that we, at the first time of our camp, that 23 players are present. I lie a little bit because there is one player who is not there. It's Aubrey Modiba, but this guy has to do something more important than being on a camp of the national team. So his wife gives birth this afternoon. I think it has to be in the presence of the father. So that's why Aubrey is not there, but he will join us later in the evening. And again, I think those things are more important in life than a qualification game for World Cup.
Meanwhile, Diogo Perel will take over as coach of Cape Town City for the rest of the season, with veteran Roger de Sá enlisted to help him after Machine Etugro's departure. Perel has been the long-standing assistant in the club and was previously in charge of 2 matches back in 2021. With 7 matches of the season left, City owner John Comitas has decided to put Perel in charge, but bring in de Sá as an assistant alongside Lebogang Manyama. In rugby, the Toyota Cheetahs are fine-tuning their preparations for what will be their biggest challenge yet in the SA Cup as they take on the Pumas in Nelspruit on Friday in round 3 of the competition. Cheetahs captain Victor Sikekete returns to lead the team after missing last week's match against the Leopards. Friday's night's clash between the Pumas and the Cheetahs at Mbombela Stadium kicks off at 7 p.m. And finally, in tennis, Indian Wells set an all-time attendance record with over 504,000 tennis fans passing through the gates during the fortnight. The previous record total was around 493,000 set last year at the 2024 event. And the tournament in the California desert is popular with fans who flock every March to the palm tree-lined Indian Wells Tennis Garden, and players who have voted in their favorite ATP Masters 1000 and WTA 1000 event in each of the past 10 years. On that note, it is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the
So Indian Wells is what, like the best venue, according to, is that what
they had record fans, so a lot of fans are enjoying
from
the tournament.
America, right? Yeah. I wonder what people think if they play tennis. Like, what for you, if you've been to tennis venues around the world, right? What for you would be the best venue? So I think there's really 2 parts.
In terms of
what is
tennis,
the best venue, the best tennis venue in the world that you've been to physically? And then the other one is that you haven't been, but you just know about it and you just love the atmosphere. Any thoughts on that?
I've always wanted, unfortunately it's not going to happen, but I've always wanted to watch Serena Williams play in Wimbledon.
Okay. No, when you say not going to happen, I said, you can go to Wimbledon.
Yes, I can, but I'm not going to watch her play.
Maybe she'll play in the Legends tournament. You never know. Things can happen. What about you listening? I mean, what's the best tennis event that you've ever been to, if you've physically been there, right? I'm expecting Kaya Sitoli to actually call in and say, Ashraf, you know I've been to everywhere. It's definitely been to Wimbledon, right? And then if you haven't been there, what about the best event that you haven't been to, but you just know it's like the place you want to be? For me, yeah, it's got to be Wimbledon. Seriously, there's a snob appeal about it. I don't know why, but yeah, Wimbledon it has to be, right? This is the National Pulse.
Dr. Nikki Alexander, Dr. Thomas Chamberlain, and Dr. Jack Hodgson form a dedicated team of forensic pathologists who try to work out how and why the victim died. This series sees Nikki investigate a murder that's a carbon copy of a case from her past. She soon suspects that the killings are personal to her. But who will believe her? Meanwhile, Jack creates tension when he finds himself aligned with a police complaints investigator over the accidental shooting of a girl by armed police. And a seemingly random killing in the remote countrysides leads Nikki and Jack into the dangerous underbelly of a criminal world. This is Silent Witness, Thursdays and Fridays at 10 p.m. Starts 20 February only on S3. Open up.
What you're about to hear is not a call from Standard Bank.
Hello, Ma. You just made a payment of 2,000 Rand to a store in Guatemala. Yeah, if not, please give me the OTP we've just sent to you and we'll stop this transaction.
Don't fall for it. Standard Bank will never ask you for your one-time PIN over the phone. If you suspect fraud, hang up immediately. Visit our help center on the banking app to learn more or call our fraud line on 0800 222 050. Another lesson to hashtag beat the scam. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Who will rise in the Hollywoodbets Pro Series, where the top 8 women's cricket teams face off against each other to lift the inaugural Hollywoodbets Pro 50 and Pro 20 trophies? Local pride is at stake with the log table taking shape. Waza nawe! Get down to a stadium near you and show your support. Visit cricket.co.za for more information. Entrance to Hollywoodbets Pro Series matches is free.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM.
Right, we're going to take your calls pretty shortly, I'm sure about it. So what is it you want to talk about? You can comment on the conversation I had with Professor Patrick Bond, and he effectively is saying that what's happened with Rasool's expulsion is political bullying. You can comment on that. You can also comment on, forget the diplomacy part, but is Rasool correct in his assessment of the USA? He may not be wise about being expedient, but is he correct in his actual analogy, or his analysis rather, of what's going on in the world, right? Then, of course, that conversation about Rwanda and the DRC, what do you make of that? And maybe any of the other issues that certainly gets your fancy, whatever it is. You want to even talk about your favorite tennis venue, that's fine with me too, right? Now, today, by the way, is a World Social Work Day. Not to be confused with Social Media Day, okay? So World Social Work Day. It's celebrated on this day around the globe. And what does that really mean? There's a theme for this year. Let's find out about that and just how strong, how entrenched and important is the work of social workers in our country. Dr. Maralise Vergottini with me, social worker from the Northwest University. Dr. Vergottini, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and it's just such an honor to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Pleasure. Well, this is just another working day for you on Social Work Day today, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I'm still a social worker. I'm currently a lecturer, but in heart and soul social worker, and I think I've got a big passion for social work.
Okay.
I'll always be a social worker.
Just so there is no confusion, when we talk about social work, I think I know what it is, but you better tell me what exactly is social work. When we talk of social work or a social worker, what do they do?
So this is actually a very good question. I was actually talking about this exact point earlier today with a colleague. I think if you traditionally ask someone, what does a social worker do? They say, well, they go to children's court, they take children away. They make sure children are okay. They give food. They give clothing. So I think the typical traditional view of a social worker is someone that takes care of children, or not always a good view, you know, like there can be a stigma attached to a social worker. But I think many people don't know that social workers are entrenched in the community in so many settings. So if you want me to
Can we put it this way, that social workers in many ways, and I'm trying to find an analogy that sticks, I mean, that they're the cushion that, you know, people who are grieved in communities lean on. They rely on that cushion for that comfort all of the time. Is that how you would see it?
Absolutely. The moment when there's a crisis, what happens? People call social workers. And I think that is why social work as a profession is so important, and people should really know what social work is all about. And I think the main emphasis of social work is that we work with vulnerable groups of people, and we try to foster resilience in them, and provide social support systems to them as well. So I'm not sure if people know, but social workers can be found in the police service, doing forensic social work. They can do employee assistant programs. They work in the SANDF. Social workers are found in schools, and that's my speciality, school social work. And you see that more and more often because children need people that they can trust and that they can go to. So I just think, you know, in the health sector, hospitals, all over, social workers are being employed because they are so important. And I think because we have the ability to foster that resilience that is so important, and I think many people lack these days.
Would you say therefore in a fractured
circumstances?
Would you say therefore in a fractured world and maybe in a fractured society there's now even a greater dependence on social workers in the same way that, you know, it sounds bizarre that, you know, how people are dependent on Wi-Fi, like, oh my goodness, I don't have Wi-Fi, like what am I going to do next? That the social workers, their role is increasingly important. If it's not being seen so, it needs to.
Well, absolutely. And this is not only something that we see in South Africa. This is a global phenomenon that people are really grabbing onto something that they know, but they're not sure. They know that social workers can help, but they're not sure how. You know, I'm not sure if that makes sense. But if you talk about Wi-Fi, that's exactly my analogy that I usually use. I don't know your age. But if I take a cell phone away from you now, a cell phone, you won't be able to cope, right?
Yeah, true.
But if you grew up without a cell phone, you wouldn't understand the need for a cell phone.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good point.
So the thing is, because of our circumstances, because of the environment that we are currently living in, people need that more and more, and I just think that people don't know actually the value that social work can bring into their lives. And it doesn't have to be, oh, I've got a social worker, so there's something wrong in my life. It's because the social worker can bring something into my life. She can build, or he can build something into my life to make me stronger, to make me more resilient. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it does. Perhaps the glue that keeps the cement together, maybe another way to look at it. So on Social Work Day today, right, what is the purpose of this day, and how do you leverage off this day to highlight the importance of social work? In fact, you're doing it right away, even now.
Yeah, so I think the theme of Social Work Day is strengthening intergenerational solidarity for enduring well-being. So I think with that, it's actually a lot of words, but we are actually saying through that we really want people to look at the intergenerational getting together, you know, the glue that you were just talking about. In order for us to make sure that everyone's well-being are taken care of.
So what's the position regarding social work in South Africa? Meaning the state of social work as an industry, if I can call it that, and obviously we speak about doctors where there's shortages of doctors and doctors who are unemployed as well. I mean, does that apply to social work in this country too?
You know what? Social work is actually is facing a lot of challenges currently. So I truly believe that there's a demand for social work and it continues to rise. Unfortunately, due to funding cuts, a lack of resources, poor salaries, social workers are really struggling. We've got some of the best systems in place, but we don't have resources. So I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's something like if I want to, for example, going back to Wi-Fi, I want to do an EFT payment, but I can't because I don't have Wi-Fi. I need to remove a child, but where to? Because there's no place for this child. I need a child to go to a clinic for certain medication or treatment because there's no funding available for the parents to take the child, but the child needs to wait for 3 months to get an appointment. So the thing is, social workers really struggle.
So therefore, on this day, I mean, if you've got one wish list that you'd wish would happen that comes out true, what would you want for social workers on this day?
A wish list? Well, I think one of the things is really that I think people out there would really see social workers for who they are and what they can bring to the table. And you know what? I really, really want children out there, and I hope that some children are listening to this program. I'm not sure if they are listening, but that children start seeing that they can maybe become a social worker one day and make a change in other people's lives. And it doesn't have to be sitting in a children's court. It can be in another way. There's so many things that a social worker can bring to the table, and I really wish that more and more people will go look into social work. And if you don't know what it is, call the university, go to a social worker, ask them, what do you do? What can I do to become a social worker one day?
Okay,
because, there's many options. Yes.
Well, I'll tell you what, thank you for that. I'm suggesting that maybe, young children would maybe not be tuning in as a first choice to the station, but many of them are driving from school with their parents and they've kept their radios on and they have no choice but to listen to the show and hopefully be inspired to say, oh my goodness, I want to be a social worker. So you're a young person right now listening on the way back from school to us talking about social work. Well, here's your chance. Dream big, dream social work. Dr. Maralise Vergottini, appreciate your time. Thanks for enlightening us on this World Social Work Day today. And to just to reconnect again on that theme, strengthening intergenerational solidarity for enduring well-being. That's the role of a social worker on Social Workers' Day.
We've upgraded. Our new GIS-linked national address database lets us connect with you better than ever before. By visualizing licensed and unlicensed households nationwide, we can ensure timely communication. Our payment reminders are a crucial tool to help you stay compliant and avoid penalties, empowering you to take proactive steps. Efficient electronic communication helps us collect fees seamlessly, bolstering the SABC's mandate in line with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
For 90 minutes, neighbors will not get along. Bafana Bahugo are hunting for 3 points, but Dikwena want to cause an upset. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Witness the human rights pitch rivalry between South Africa and Lesotho on Friday, 21 March at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, S3 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Turn your vision into reality with Vodacom Business. Get the Samsung Galaxy S25 on a Red Business 1.7 gig contract for 1,129 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal. Add 69 Rand extra per month over 24 months and get the Samsung Galaxy Watch 7 eSIM. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together. Vodacom Business.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, let's talk. Let's get your thoughts. I want to get a sense of your pulse. What do you feel about some of the issues that we've raised today? Right, Katie in the Northern Cape. Go for it, Katie.
Ashraf and the listeners, I think that this issue of the ambassador to the USAA from South Africa is all about what we have presented to the world. So we have told the world that we are a republic with a constitution that is going to respect Western values and control. So what is happening now is that that belief and that value is bearing fruit. We are witnessing where the people that have shaped who we have become in this constitutional democracy, are saying to us, this is what you should be. So, Ashraf, South Africa is not a nation where it is true to itself. It is its customs and its people and its faith. So.
Okay, but many may say that about many other countries too. I'm not saying I agree with you, but just think about many countries. They could well fall into that category that you've described. Katie, appreciate your comments. Let's get some of the voice notes from you, right?
Hey, Ashraf. Good afternoon. I know we need AGOA because it does help sometimes. But I don't think it's supposed to compromise us like this. I hear that US is giving us ultimatum that to drop ICJ case against Netanyahu and also stop relationship with Iran. BRICS is also in their radar. We are a sovereign state. We can't allow to be bullied like this. Just because we need that AGOA, we need to rethink about this. Otherwise, we're going to be a U.S. colony instead of being a sovereign state.
Well, I don't know about rethinking, because the status quo right now is exactly that. South Africa has a very clear position regarding the ICJ and Israel, and as you saw yesterday with, again, the ceasefire collapsing, over 300 people dying. They have a relationship with Iran, yes, and some may debate whether it's a good relationship, but they do, and they have a relationship with other countries like China and Russia, which the Americans are saying don't have. But in the meantime, Trump is negotiating with his chummy in Russia to try and sort out the problems in the Ukraine. Can you see the contradictions? Magdalene in Bloemfontein, hello, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashraf.
Yep.
Hi, Ashraf. When you listen to me, it will be like I'm sarcastic. But I'm happy that you managed to listen to me in the morning. Because what you are busy saying is correlated to what I said in the morning, that when you fight for your own country's resources, in order for you to can benefit, you are regarded as a rebellion person or a rebellion group, but you are not rebellion. The point is, Ashraf, within the continent of Africa, wherever democracy was get into, it has never been fair to the African citizens. It has never. The leaders have been too much unfair and sidelining their own citizens. Even in South Africa, is the same. If we are now going to say, much as it is democracy, because we know we've got to vote and we've got the right to vote, but it can be cooked. It can be done in a different
I hear
way.
you. Your point made, but I don't think there's any record of South Africa's elections being cooked. I mean, you can debate a few votes here, even 1,000 or 10,000 or 5 or 2,000, but there's no record of it in any of our elections not being free and fair, seriously speaking.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. It's Weather Tracker here in Limpopo. Mr. Ashraf, Donald Trump is a lunatic, and the whole world shouldn't be blaming each other and us in South Africa blame our ambassador. The man is crazy. We have heard what even some courts in the United States reversing some of his decisions to deport people. The guy is crazy. We can just put a hold on this relationship for the next 4 years until he's out.
Okay, that's your opinion. And again, you know, that's as Patrick Bond said, there's people have fractured opinions about this, what's happened here.
Afternoon, Ashraf. This is Ngabs Eqibala. Ibrahim Rasool was right, or he was correct. It's only that because of the position that he had, he was supposed to follow some channel or some protocol in order for him to express such. Now it's only the position that makes him to be incorrect. Thank you.
Okay, and here's another one. Many people saying similar things. Here's another.
Ashraf, this is Matebola. Yeah, our ambassador was expelled because of his views. I think he was not diplomatic, but I think he was supposed to be given a chance like we gave to that guy, ambassador from America, I think it's last year. But when it comes to the bullies of Trump administration, we can see even about Trevor Noah, they are so quiet these days. You can never hear Trevor Noah speaks about the administration of Trump. This is my table.
Interesting one, Isaac, right? Well, I mean, one can argue that, yes, by the letter of the law, that Ebrahim Rasool was not diplomatic, right? But then how diplomatic were the you may be right, but he may not be diplomatic. But how diplomatic has the USA been from afar, talking about South Africa like these people are doing bad things? Isn't it like forgotten? They can take pot shots at any other country in the world.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Mcete here in Kala. The situation between South Africa and USA is tense and horrifying. This reminds me of what character is America when it has pointed its finger in you as a country. You can ask that from Cuba and Iraq. Where is Saddam Hussein and Fidel Castro by now? This fairness to some class was unnecessary and uncalled for even from before. There are rumors that America is saying that even the money that challenged Israel in ICJ was from Iran given to South Africa. Thanks, Ashraf.
Okay, there we are. Again, that cross-section, but bring those calls up. Let's hear what you have to say. And if you can't call, you can text us. You can certainly post on our tweets, okay, on social media, SFM Radio, and tag me, Ashraf Garda, too. Right, first things first, it's 4 o'clock. Let's get the news.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories at 4 billion allocated for infrastructure development in Gauteng and multi-million rand SASSA fraud case postponed to next month. For SAFM News, I am Onde Lambana, and a very good afternoon. More than 36 billion rand has been allocated for infrastructure development in Gauteng over the next 3 years. This was heard during the 2025 provincial budget speech delivered by Finance and Economic Development MEC Lebogang Maile earlier today. Gauteng has experienced serious infrastructure problems, which saw President Cyril Ramaphosa visiting the province recently. Maile says the infrastructure allocation for roads, energy, water and urban renewal will result in the creation of more than 25,000 jobs.
Empirical evidence indicates that most of our infrastructure projects create employment. In terms of education infrastructure, it is anticipated that 13,436 jobs will be created on infrastructure projects in the 2025 MTF, while 12,653 jobs will be created on road infrastructure projects.
Maile also says the 69 billion rand allocated to education for the 2025-26 financial year will go towards expanding access to quality basic education and early childhood development. Meanwhile, in the first stage, the provincial treasury has set aside 45 million rand for the 2025-26 financial year, with the education department getting 18 billion rand for building and maintaining schools and early childhood development, among other things. The health department has been allocated 14 billion rand for maintenance and delivery of infrastructure and medicine and medical supplies, amongst others. The Department of Roads and Transport has received a 3.7 billion. MEC for Treasury Ketsoma Kume says the focus of the provincial government will also be on economic growth and job opportunities. The body of a male nurse who had been reported kidnapped has been found floating in the Mutsipiri River near Jane First in Limpopo. Frank Petla had been kidnapped from his home at Jane First Zamani section on Sunday. He was attached to the Jane First Hospital. Makudu Tamaga Mayor Mera Mehlase has condemned the incident. Meral spokesperson Thomas Mashabela says they've sent condolences to the family.
The NPA says the postponement of the 250 million rand SASSA fraud case will afford the state and the defense more time to prepare. The bail application of the 10 accused, among them 7 SASSA employees, will resume off the 1st of April in the Lenasia Magistrate Court in Johannesburg. The accused face more than 1,000 charges, including fraud and the violation of the Cyber Crimes Act. NPA Gauteng spokesperson Pindim Jonondwane.
Much as we understand that bail is an urgent matter, but we also need to consider the role that the court is seized with. So it is not only the state that was not ready to proceed, but some of the defense attorneys indicated that their clients too are not ready, their affidavits are not yet compiled.
Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiga has urged Russia to agree unconditionally to a 30-day ceasefire to show it really wants peace. Sybiga was speaking again ahead of a much-anticipated phone call between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Kremlin has confirmed that the U.S. and Russian leaders will speak in the coming hours. The BBC's Vitaly Shevchenko.
There's absolutely nothing we've heard from Vladimir Putin or his officials that would suggest that they are ready for an unconditional ceasefire. If we look back at history, I think what Vladimir Putin accepted in the past is a Ukraine that was firmly within Russia's orbit.
Recapping the top story, more than 36 billion rand has been allocated for infrastructure development in Gauteng over the next 3 years. I'm Mondila Mara for SFM News Headlines at 4:30.
In sports, the Sour Dixon ruled out of Stormers Tour and Moodley leads SA Chase for rookie honours at Platinum Ladies Open. More details at 4:30.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.2 FM in East London.
Bafana are taking on Lesotho at the new Peter Mokaba Stadium on the 21st of March 2025 at 6 p.m. for the FIFA World Cup 2026 qualifier. Come early, dress to commemorate Human Rights Day and support Bafana for a chance to win prizes from our host, Limpopo Government and Polokwane Municipality. Gates open at 3 p.m. and tickets start from 70 Rand for adults with special rates available at 40 Rand for children under 12 at all Ticket Pro outlets. If you can't make it to Polokwane, catch the game live on S3 at 6 p.m. or visit sabcsport.com. For more details, visit safa.net and Bafana on X and TikTok.
This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us, because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So it's been a busy time in the Gauteng province because Gauteng tabled their budget speech for 2025. We'll play some clips from that coming up just now. Not quite now, just now. But staying with the issues of money, this is such a disturbing story, right? Journalists have come together and they're offering a 50,000 rands reward. So journalists offering a 50,000 reward for the whereabouts, for leads to the whereabouts of a fellow journalist, a Pretoria journalist, and his partner, who've actually been missing, I understand, for over a month now. Let's get to that story with Antoinette Slabbert, who's the chairperson of the National Press Club. Antoinette, appreciate your time, and thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and thank you so much for putting the spotlight on this very concerning matter. You know, it's a month.
It certainly is.
Jana Aseri is missing, Zotwa is missing, their families don't know where they are, their colleagues don't know where they are, we are just flabbergasted.
So let's go back. I mean, who are we talking about here? Just so that we know what work does this journalist do in what space, and then we'll talk about the fact that him and his partner are missing for over a month.
Yes, so Aseri is a member of the National Press Club Executive Committee. We know him as a lively guy. He was the founder of Capital Live FM, a community radio station in Mamelodi. He's passionate about radio and about community media. And he's also one of our tech guys. You know, when we battle with IT, we call Aseri. He does not work on heavy investigative stuff. And the question whether his work or anything to do with his work might have been a motivation for whatever is happening here, that has largely been ruled out by the investigators. Zotwa, we don't know her personally. We know she's Aseri's partner. Both of them are parents. Their children don't live with them. They live with their other parents. But they are both parents. And for example, Zotwa has got two boys. The one is a beautiful young man who attended our media briefing. The other is a boy he's in grade 10. And he's supposed to write his exams at the moment, but the boy cannot even focus to study.
I can just
He's
imagine,
so upset about his mother.
So, I mean, look, the issues of, people missing and disappearing for weeks on end, sadly, is a South African phenomenon, and we know, and that's just, it's a bad reflection on our country anyway, right? When it comes to a journalist missing, the natural line would be, is this a type of hit? I mean, is it linked to his work? And you're suggesting that evidence suggests that can't be the case, right?
Well, the private investigator Calvin Rafadi, who does work pro bono for the families, he, by the way, he also works with the police. He told us that they looked into what he was working on, and they also looked into allegations that he was being extorted. And none of those really bear out as a possible motive for whatever has happened.
Well, it's very, very disturbing. And I mean, would you say, would it be linked in any way to work that he's done? I mean, journalistic work? Because certainly when I heard about it, that was my first thought, right? What are your thoughts?
No, we don't think so, but we go on what the investigators say. It's a community radio station. Obviously, you address many things that are dear to the community, but nothing really largely contentious, or there's no big corruption case that he was trying to expose that we know of. Nothing like that. So we don't know whether it's pure criminality or we really just don't know.
All right, so let's then talk about the 50,000 being put up. So this is not done by the Pretoria or the National Press Club. This is done by individual journalists. Have I got that right?
Well, the National 25,000 and the African Media and Communicators Forum, which is also an industry body, they put up the other half. We just came together. We are not rich organizations. We are NGOs. But we said to ourselves, we cannot just let this story die down, write about it one day and never write about it again. And we felt that maybe that can make the difference, because surely someone, somewhere must know something.
Yeah.
And we hope that this can encourage that person who knows something to come forward and to give us information, give it to the police actually, to help us to find the couple.
Do you know much about the circumstances on the day that they disappeared?
Ashraf, that was also very confusing, because Aseri left Denlin Mall in Mamelodi. That is where his studios are. So there was CCTV footage of him leaving, and that created the impression that he vanished from there. And then Zotwa vanished from their house in KwaMahlanga. The house was also, by the way, ransacked. So it created the impression that the two of them vanished on the same day in two different provinces. But the investigators says they have been able, through analyzing cell phone data and other information to puzzle the picture together, and they know that he arrived home. Someone saw both of them at the house on the day, the 18th of February, and they actually also saw them driving away in Aseri's white Volkswagen Golf.
What about the police?
Me,
Now you speak about private investigators. What about the police itself?
Well, the police is definitely working very hard. We are in contact with the police at the highest level, but obviously they don't want to jeopardize the investigation. So we really work through the investigator who works closely with the police. But the police is definitely looking into this. They got the information that's not available to you and me, cell phone records and so forth. But so far, there's nothing substantial that, I mean, they are still missing.
And I take it, I mean, clearly there had to be a call out even through that community radio station where he served, right? So even there's been no comeback.
Yes, of course. I mean, he's a well-known figure in Mamelodi. People know him from the radio station. He's also very much involved in events in the community. And so far, nothing substantial has come forward.
Sure.
So that we,
Well, not that money is an issue, but I certainly hope the 50,000 rands being put up for information that would lead to their whereabouts will hopefully come to fruition, and people can actually call in. I mean, contact you guys. So they need to contact who? The National Press Club directly?
No, Ashraf, if I can give the number, they can phone Brigadier Edwin Nama.
Okay.
And the number is 082
Right.
778
Yeah.
9035. Can I quickly repeat it?
Yeah, please do.
It's 082 778 9035. Brigadier Edwin Nama. And they will assess the information that comes in and act on it,
Okay.
and advise us in the end if we find them, whether there was a link between the information given and
Well,
finding
thank you for that. I hope the Brigadier gets the leads that you require, and I hope it's actually good news at some stage or the other. Thank you for that. And really, our apologies too. I think it certainly strikes a whole emotional chord just listening to the story about another person in the media space. It could be anybody, of course, but certainly somebody in the media space now missing for over a month. Antoinette Slabbert, thanks for your time. Chairperson of the National Press Club based in Pretoria. He's from Mamelodi. Him and his partner missing for over a month. 082 778 9035. Come on, make that call if you know anything that could help them to be able to locate the couple.
Is there ever a bad time for a good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us, because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
And then, how? SK, where are you going with that stuff?
My dog, I'm going whale watching. New hobby, you see. Finally going out to explore the world. Giri levels, Dwana.
I see the life jacket, but I don't know how an inflatable boat, megaphone, and a fishing rod fits into all of this.
How else am I going to get to the whales, Bongs? I need the boat. The megaphone is to do my whale calls, and the fishing rod, it's called ambience. Ambience. If you don't get it, forget about it.
Okay, but SK, you know there aren't any whales here in Germiston Lake.
Ooh, Shem, Mr. Know-it-all. Whales live in the water, and Germiston Lake has water.
Hey, sure, Ntwana, go whale watching in Germiston Lake. Me! I'll tune into Whale with Steve Buckshall, Sundays at 5 p.m. only on S3.
If we have rights, shouldn't we also have opinions? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Come, what for you moves the national pulse locally as well as globally? Let's talk about that, okay? Please, here's a question. Please ask the investigator to get to section 205 and go to the banks that these missing people use. You will get an idea of where the last transactions in their bank accounts took place. If no activity happened in those accounts, then it will also tell you something. Okay, point made. Let's talk about the Gauteng budget speech now. The Gauteng Finance and Economic Development MEC Lebogang Maile tabled the 2025 budget speech in the Gauteng legislature today. The MEC tabled a R500 billion budget over the 3 years for the Gauteng provincial government. So there's some important issues that were raised. Let's play some clips around that. First of all, the MEC Maile then spoke about the province's revenue collection strategy.
Reach and even surpass these targets, provincial departments are implementing various strategies to enhance revenue collection, anchored on our provincial revenue enhancement strategy that is underpinned by the following principles. So this is important. We've got a revenue enhancement strategy. And this revenue enhancement strategy is about accelerating the completion of interventions that has already started, because there's a lot of interventions. Optimizing the existing revenue sources, enhancing revenue collection processes and systems to increase efficiency, cost effectiveness, and eliminate leakages, identifying potential new revenue sources that have not been explored, and the use of alternative funding and implementation models to achieve more value. Departments are prioritizing the collection of debt that is currently being owed by various stakeholders, including non-renewal of motor vehicle licenses and non-renewal of liquor licenses. The province is also looking into optimizing revenue collection processes and implementing smart technology solutions to ensure that we minimize revenue leakages. We are creating new innovative partnerships with the private sector on revenue sharing models, where the private sector will drive the funding and the implementation of some of these new models.
And then the MEC spoke about the allocations of money amongst various departments: education, women, girls, youth, and persons with disability.
In the 2025 year, the Gauteng Department of Education receives 69.6 billion and cumulatively 211.2 billion over the MTF to expand access to quality education and early childhood development and improve education outcomes for women, girls, youth, and persons with disabilities. They will also be focused on delivering high-quality education across the foundation, intermediate, senior, and the further education and training phases, changing of the education landscape to accelerate relevant and quality learning and the creation of safe schools environment and the promotion of social cohesion. The Gauteng Department of Social Development receives 5.5 billion for the 2025-2026 financial year and 16.8 billion over the MTF. Honorable Mazibuko, this is to secure social compacts and partnerships to build a skilled and capable workforce, implement a single window urban poverty and hunger elimination approach, and strengthen support for homeless and vulnerable persons. Furthermore, the department will be offering comprehensive skills development through the integration of skills development initiatives within its various service offerings. The Gauteng Department of Cooperative Governance, Honorable Mamabulo, receives 551.4 million in the 2025-2026 financial year and 1.7 billion over the MTF to carry out its role of strengthening integrated planning, cooperative governance, and improved oversight and coordination at the center of government. This will be achieved through programs that support development and integrated planning and improving oversight as part of building capable ethical developmental state in support of outcome 3.1 of the 2024-2029 medium-term development plan.
And then what about, two really important departments that has an impact on society, the issues of human settlements and roads and transport?
2026 financial year, the Department of Human Settlement will be allocated an amount of 5.8 billion and in total 16.6 billion over the MTF towards the provision of access to inclusionary human settlement opportunities, such as the optimization of land use via the Rapid Land Release Program, provision of housing opportunities, including the servicing of stands through mega housing projects, as well as job creation opportunities through the expanded public works program. Member Masilela, the issue you have raised of that mega project, we will deal with it. The Gauteng Department of Roads and Transport 2025-2026 allocation is 9.7 billion and 28 billion over the MTF is primarily for the provision of a safe, reliable and affordable integrated transport system that enables equitable access to opportunities and enhances the quality of life for the people of Gauteng. Furthermore, these resources will be directed towards fixing of street lights and potholes as announced in the G13 by the Premier, the issues that the Premier spoke about. The department will also upgrade and rehabilitate strategic road infrastructure, improving safe accessibility to special economic zones and job creation opportunities through the extended public works program.
Okay, that gives you a snapshot of what was presented today at the Gauteng Finance budget speech, right, for 2025. Comments from you. Let's hear it. In the meantime, let's get to other comments that you've spoken about, wherever you may be, be it Harry Smith or Hartswater. I certainly want to know what you have to say, or if you are anywhere around the world as well, because in many ways, via live streaming, you are absolutely connected to the umbilical cord, which is South Africa, and that is the national pulse, right? Yeah, let's get to the other comments.
In all of our analysis of this debacle, one thing we mustn't lose sight of is Ibrahim Rasool was disrespectful not only to the president but to the people of the US, the overwhelming majority of whom actually voted for this president that our former ambassador now deemed appropriate to insult. Thanks, Ashraf. Thabo Midrand.
Thanks for that, Thabo. I think that's come through many times to say, by the letter of the law, was he diplomatic or undiplomatic? I think the answer would be possibly no, right? But was he forced into a corner to say what he has said, keeping in mind the context of what's been going on between South Africa and the USA and his inability to be able to secure appointments, I understand, in the last few weeks? I mean, he's been there before, he's seasoned, so that doesn't matter. I'm not saying that he did the right thing. I'm saying to you was he put into a corner based upon what actually happened? Just consider that.
Good afternoon, Azra. Good afternoon, listeners. Yeah, this is Patrick from Soweto. Azra, I think it's time for AfriForum. They appoint the same leader, the Kriel. Is it Kriel? And being the ambassador of South Africa, because he's the one who caused these messes. I think our president must appoint who's that Kriel, and represent us in in the US, because it's the one who created this mess. They must fix this mess. Thank you, Patrick Soweto.
That would be something. Can you just imagine that? Kali Kriel, South African ambassador to the United States of America. Okay, we do have a sense of humor, but can you imagine that comes actually true? Stranger things have happened, haven't they? We've had, people in opposition also representing the country on many issues, right? So will that happen? Okay, we'll see.
Hi, good afternoon, Ashraf and team. Do you know, if somebody did the math and went and looked at all of the car rentals that were done in Cape Town, which were white Golfs or Polos, and around the time that Jocelyn Smith went missing, one could actually see and just eliminate that side.
Well, I mean, you may be right. I think some more further investigation has to happen, isn't it?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I think Ibrahim Rasool deserves a hero's welcome when he comes back. What more can we still gain as a country by praising Donald Trump? The horse has already bolted. We have got nothing to gain from Donald Trump's presidency. We must continue to criticize him openly or publicly. Thank you very much. Peter Maila Machaba from Letswatla.
Thank you, Peter. Would you give Ibrahim Rasool a hero's welcome, or would you give him a villain's welcome? What would you do?
Hey, Ashraf, I am a social worker with an LLB because, like the professor says, if you're going to remove a child, but the child has got no place to go, and therefore you are not being effective, as far as I'm concerned, then you are not needed. That's why many of us have left to pursue other professions because we can make better money. Even the professor, Shame herself, she makes it sound like a scapsal profession. Ay man, no. However, the fact is, it's got poor salaries and many of us have left. And whoever they are producing now in universities, I don't know how effective they are. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, I mean, that's a dilemma because, again, some of the most absolutely needed positions in terms of sectors of our society are underpaid, including teachers and, you can talk about doctors as well in government hospitals, those that get employed as well. Okay, news headlines. It's for 30 years on Della.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, the National Student Financial Aid Scheme says it has provisionally funded more than 600,000 eligible students at various universities for the 2025 academic year. More than 36 billion rand has been allocated for infrastructure development in Gauteng over the next 3 years. This was heard during the 2025 provincial budget speech delivered by Finance and Economic Development MEC Lebogang Maile earlier today. And a 22-year-old man has been sentenced to 30 years imprisonment by the George Regional Court in the Western Cape for the rape and murder of a 16-year-old girl. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound slow moving through Crown interchange towards Boysons and the N1 northbound in Pretoria queuing towards Garsfontein Road. In KZN, the N3 westbound has a stationary vehicle before the M13 Paradise Valley exit, and the N3 eastbound in Ashburton is queuing towards Linfield Park. In Cape Town, on the N1 outbound, a crash before Monte Vista Boulevard. All lanes are open, but traffic is still slow moving. And the N7 checks Havel Drive southbound, queuing towards Voortrekker Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Okay, Tumi, you've got news about rugby, right?
Yes, Stormers flanker Ben Jason Dixon has been ruled out of the Stormers 2-match URC tour due to surgery. Dixon will undergo surgery in his wrist this week, which ruled him out of contention, along with scrum half Stefan, who is recovering from a groin strain. A 30-man Stormers squad left the mother city today for Europe, where the Cape outfit will take to the field in Lanelli and Belfast over the next fortnight. They face Scarlets on Saturday before heading to North Island to take on Ulster at the Kingspan Stadium next Friday. In cricket, the Western Province men's team are gearing up for the resumption of the CSA 4-day series this week. The boys in blue have been working hard at training and preparing to face the Titans at Supersport Park on Thursday at 10 a.m. With key players being available for the selection, the team has been looking strong and motivated. Captain Kyle Verreyn says that the team is in high spirits ahead of the trip to the capital. In football, Kaizer Chiefs head coach Nasruddin Nabi has addressed the recent comments made by Bafana coach Hugo Bruce regarding the exclusion of Amakhosi players from the national team. Bruce recently said that he would only consider bringing in Chiefs players when the team is doing well again, but Nabi feels a player like Thabo Xele still deserves a look in the national team.
Respecter toujours le choix de sélectionneur national, respecter ce qu'il dit.
We have to respect the choices and the decisions of the national team coach, because he's the one that makes the choices, which doesn't take away our feeling that Thabo Xele is a very good player, and we hope that in the future, if he will go back to national team, and we know that by working hard, that time will come.
Moving on to tennis, the Players Union, co-founded by Novak Djokovic, have begun legal action against tennis governing bodies, citing anti-competitive practices and a blatant disregard for player welfare. Now, the Professional Tennis Players Association has filed papers at the United States District Court in New York, where it is looking for a jury trial. The 146-page lawsuit says that professional tennis players are stuck in a rigged game, which gives them limited control over their own careers and brands. And the lawsuit criticizes the schedule, ranking systems, and the control over image rights. In athletics, South African 10-kilometer record holder Glenrose Xaba has confirmed her participation in the YAPSA Run Your City 10-kilometer race that is set for the 13th of April in Gqeberha. The race offers around 30,000 rands prize for the first male and female finishers, and Xaba says that she's quite eager to kick off the road running season and feeling optimistic about her 2024 campaign.
I'm feeling blessed because I'm running without injury-free. The Gqeberha course is fair enough. I'm looking forward to run a good time.
Moving on to hockey, South Africa's Ryan Julius has called time on his international hockey career at the age of 29. He represented South Africa in both outdoor and indoor major competitions over a span of 10 years and has 2 Olympics, World Cups and Commonwealth Games under his belt. On that note, it is a wrap from my side for now.
It's a wrap. So just tell me what happened. The Bafana coach, Bruce, he picked a team for their World Cup qualifiers, and there's no player from that club called Kaizer Chiefs.
Not only that, he did say himself that I will only start choosing players from Kaizer Chiefs when the team starts doing well again. So there's been an uproar around it, and I think Nabi's response is very modest, and it's the truth of the matter. When a coach is in charge of a national team, what we expect from him is results. Do we really expect him to appease the fans that are saying choose certain players from certain clubs? And my question is, if a lot of people are saying choose a Thabo Xele in the national team, who in the current national team should not be there and Thabo should come in to replace them?
And you have any thoughts on that? I mean, here's the point.
I'm not saying that he can't choose any Chiefs players, period, but I'm saying the team that he's chosen, I think they deserve to be there.
Okay, so then even if a Chiefs player is not there, and if somebody else is better at this point in time for the country, then so be it.
So be it. If there are better players, but truth of the matter is, are they better players than the ones that are currently chosen?
Bottom line, they represent South Africa, not Kaizer Chiefs. I mean, I think we all need to get perspective. We all want our players from our teams to be there. It doesn't always work that way, does it? Right, more sport to me in an hour's time.
This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us. Because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Do great solutions start with good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
This business feature is sponsored by CFI, an authorized financial services provider, a global leader in online trading now available in South Africa. Visit cfi.trade today.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Well, Makwe Masilela is the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. He's got news on local markets, global markets, but starting with the results from Old Mutual. Makwe, go for it.
Afternoon to you, Ashraf, and to the listeners. Yes, Old Mutual solid performance, and Ashraf, that was driven by exceptional underwriting results when it comes to Old Mutual Insure. Strong contribution from wealth management and Old Mutual investment, but partially offset by lower profits coming from personal finance, and their funds under management increased by 10% to 1.5 trillion rands, reflecting strong performance in equities and money market. Gross written premium up 7% to 27.3 billion, and that was due to getting more customers, new customers, and robust performance when it comes to the alternative risk transfer. And hence, their profit as adjusted headline earnings per share up 17%. And market started the session looking ahead to key vote when it comes to German Parliament on historic data reform, developments in the Ukraine peace process, and also markets are focusing on tomorrow's Bank of Japan and U.S. interest rate decisions. Remember, ours and Bank of England will be on Thursday. And for now, we can see trade tariffs impact on the U.S. import prices, which increased by 0.4% as U.S. has engaged in a tit-for-tat tariff battle, and oil prices supported by instability in the Middle East and China plans for economic stimulus. We see Brent crude is up 0.7% at $71 a barrel, and the very same conflict in the Middle East and also Trump's plans to press on with tariffs drove the metal price to new record highs as safe haven demand got elevated. The gold is up 0.8% at $3,025, but platinum is down 2% at $999. And U.S. markets resumed their sell-off, but Europe and South Africa are up with the GSE above 1%, and our resources doing most of the heavy lifting. And the rand has weakened 0.2% against the dollar. It's now 18.11, 23.49 against the pound, and 19.73 against the euro.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Makwe. We will connect again tomorrow.
Thank you for tuning in to today's business feature, proudly sponsored by CFI, a leading trading app now available in South Africa. Download it now. Visit cfi.trade today.
Hi, I'm Lewis Hamilton. Victory demands everything, but the journey is never solo. My team carves the way, data and innovation are my compass. This is how today's champions are made.
Trade like a champion with CFI. Access over 15,000 instruments, advanced trading tools, 24/7 support, and superior trading services. Visit cfi.trade today. CFI Financial Markets LLC is a Category 1 licensed broker by the UAE Securities and Commodities Authority. Trading involves high risk.
CFI, empower yourself.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM.
I'm just looking at this from Errol saying, Ashraf, it's like comments like this, calling him crazy and a lunatic that makes my blood boil. I'm all for criticizing him, but not like this. Okay, points taken, right? I suppose you're talking about former ambassador to the USA, Ibrahim Rasool, right? By the way, we'll get to your calls in a minute or two, in a few minutes' time. In fact, we'll take your calls. We'll check out your WhatsApp voice notes and text messages. So perhaps one thought just that I'll throw to you, right? Who would you put as South Africa's ambassador? If you had the choice to appoint someone, who would you appoint as South Africa's ambassador? We've already had one person named Kali Kriel. I mean, seriously, who would you put as South Africa's ambassador to the USA? He's going to have to deal with Donald Trump. Remember that, okay? In the meantime, we are having to deal with the weather. I have no doubt, as far as I'm concerned, living in Johannesburg, it's been the wettest summer we've had. There's been moments of extreme heat, and then wet. Yeah, I know that It sounds like I'm talking about a song. Wet, wet, wet. Lekgakgono Tobela is South African Weather Services meteorologist and forecaster. And let's talk about just weather patterns, because I understand, again, these weather patterns, not just in Johannesburg or Gauteng, but around the country, are so irregular, and they're going to continue. So appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse. Lekgakgono.
Good afternoon, and yes, thanks for having me. I wouldn't say irregular, but I'd say them becoming more frequent in terms of more of the weather system resulting in rainfall, especially in the eastern parts of the country. And we're still within the seasonal forecast, and the seasonal forecast was actually suggesting above normal rain, especially for the central and the eastern parts from midsummer into late summer. So it looks like we're still on track in terms of the rain that we're getting, but the extremes that we're getting in the eastern parts, they're really, really devastating, especially in areas like KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape province. Yeah. So we're still here to have a high pressure system reaching in the eastern parts, with the surface low over the southwestern interior, and most of the southwestern parts expecting an upper air trough that might result in a scattered to isolated showers and thundershowers. But mainly for Thursday and Friday, I'll say that's when we can expect some adverse weather conditions for the southwestern interior, especially over the Western Cape, as well as the central and the southern parts of the Northern Cape province. We might get some relief for the central and the eastern areas, because we're just expecting a 30% chance of showers and thundershowers. But to forecast to tomorrow, we're still expecting a scattered chance of showers and thundershowers, especially over Mpumalanga as well as the northern parts of KwaZulu-Natal. So we have a yellow level 1 warning for severe thunderstorms that are expected over the high field of Mpumalanga into the central and the southern parts of Gauteng. These storms may bring about heavy downpours by the afternoon tomorrow and result in some localized flooding. But with severe thunderstorms, we do know that you can also expect damaging winds as well as a possibility of hail over those areas. It will depend with the strength of the storm over an area. Obviously, for localized areas, it will be different in terms of how it gets severe. For the central, for the northern parts of KwaZulu-Natal, we're still expecting some disruptive rain that might result into localized flooding. But it is a yellow level 1 warning, meaning the impact is minor, with a medium likelihood of it happening for tomorrow.
Okay, and just lastly, you spoke about this extreme weather patterns. What is causing those extreme patterns, and how long will that continue?
You know, obviously in the meteorology, I'd use a meteorological term. So we'd have a surface system called a low pressure system over the southwestern interior, as well as a high pressure system in the east during summer. But what that does is, once the high pressure starts to reach in the eastern parts, it brings about moisture from the coastal areas and most parts of the ocean into the northeastern regions, bring about moisture that's enough to bring about rain. And the clouds that form that due to that moisture that results in the northeastern parts. But also that I need to speak about for the southwestern interior. You spoke about irregularities, but I think it's definitely sometimes a shock to say, tomorrow we're expecting a heat wave with persistently high temperatures over most parts of the extreme eastern parts of the Eastern Cape, just east of Umtata. But for the southwestern interior, hot and uncomfortable conditions are expected, with high discomfort over most parts of the central and the northwestern parts of the Western Cape province. So I think I've had interviews where they're like, this side is hot, that side is raining, that side is snowing. So I think it's one of the things that makes people say, hey, these weather patterns, you can't keep up. But I guess that's why you have us as weather forecasters, to definitely give you what you expect for the days that are to come.
Well, absolutely. Okay, thanks for that. Appreciate. Hopefully that'll help. Okay, thank you for that information. Tobela, South African Weather Services meteorologist. What you can't do is you choose the weather pattern that just suits your lifestyle. You just can't do that, can you? Right? Okay, let's get a feel of your pulse after this.
Who says talking never solves anything? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, lots of things happening in South Africa and around the world. Let's get your comments too. AB in Durban wants to talk about Gaza. Go for it, AB.
Right. Ashraf, Israel, with the full support of the United States, launched a murderous attack on the Gaza throughout the whole night, wiping out sleeping families in tents. Absolutely heart-wrenching to see dead bodies of little babies. I challenge the listeners to watch Al Jazeera, even for 10 minutes, to see the massacres with the death toll over 500 and thousands injured. But Ashraf, please allow me to make my main point, which is what really annoys me greatly is that our media is either a bit coy about giving full coverage of the massacres or regularly takes the position of what is known as the right of reply, giving both sides of the story. There are no equal sides to where there is evil. There were no two equal sides to apartheid South Africa. There were no two sides to evil Nazis. And there's no equal two sides to the story.
But I mean, I hear your point, Abi. I think firstly, Abi, just one thing. On the issue of coverage, I mean, I think media, we certainly give it coverage on this show and many other shows within SAFM, including television. But you must remember one thing, right? That where we are in South Africa, that the issue of Palestine, Israel or Gaza is critically important, but it's not the only big story in the world. For example, for us, the issue of what's happened regarding the expulsion of Ebrahim Rasool and AGOA and our budget speeches, I mean, those are critical issues. How do we ignore that and give wall-to-wall coverage to one other issue? That's the first point. The second point is, I think, and I've been following the pictures, they are horrific, and you're absolutely correct, okay? But when you have an official line that says, we are attacking the people of Gaza because they broke the ceasefire, and then you get another line that says, in fact, the Israelis broke the ceasefire, do we actually ignore both stories as a newsroom? I'm talking about, not my personal opinion, as a newsroom. Do we ignore both stories and how and their versions of it, maybe?
I'm saying that there was no balance about apartheid South Africa and also about apartheid Israel. So I think our media here must not look nervously over its shoulder about any pushback from the pro-Israel, pro-genocide lobby in South Africa. The media must stop this right of reply for a genocidal racist regime. Okay. That side is pure evil, and that's full stop.
Okay, you've made your point, Abi, in Durban, right? We've got more views for Yizwa in a moment. Mike and Newlands, go for it.
Yeah, thanks, Ashraf. Your interview with Professor Bond, I was a little disappointed by that. I must be honest. I really do wish we could get the DA and the opposition parties to comment on this. Professor Bond is a bit of a strange person because he made the strange comment. I know he meant it as a joke to say that Trump cheats at golf, but it wasn't very funny. And if Trump does cheat at golf, then I'd like Professor Bond to produce the proof. And I've also found it very disappointing to compare Rasool with the Ambassador Brigitte when he was here. Let's just look at Brigitte's track record. He's got a degree in political science, a master in philosophy and international relations. He served actively in the U.S. Navy and trained as
but it's not about qualifications. I mean, Mike, you're shifting. It's not about qualifications, right? No. I think we've had an issue with Brigitte, who made a comment about South Africa, and he was wrong.
I'm making the point that then you have Rasool, who was involved when he was premier here. He was involved in a scandal on brown envelope bribe, allegedly. He's a known supporter of Hamas, a terrorist organization, Iraq and Iran. And of course, he was the one who went down to say goodbye to Tony Yengeni, a convicted criminal who stole from us. So to compare Rasool to Brigitte, I think really is a failing.
Well, I mean, we can debate. I mean, we can debate the issues of Iran and Iraq and everything else.
Point about Professor Bond.
But by the way, your last point about the DA. In fact, we spoke to Douglas Gibson yesterday. I hope you listened to that conversation.
I didn't.
Well, you see, but that's my point, Mike. You say something, you make a comment, almost like we've ignored another view. In fact, we've had 2-3 different views on the conversation. I can tell you that now, and I'm talking only on this show, not on any other show. Mike, thanks for that. You've made your point. We'll get further comments in a moment.
Slangs and Negati want to attack their visitors from the first whistle to the end. But the Dodos are confident they will toast to victory after the final whistle. Both nations are thirsty for maximum points. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Experience the joy of African football. Eswatini versus Mauritius on Sunday, 23 March at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM. Prime time all day long. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, more thoughts. Let me pick up. There's been a range of WhatsApps as well on these issues. I'll get to some of the calls too. Right. By the way, that issue that we spoke about, Bafana, here's one.
Ashraf, how are you? Regarding with the Thabo Cele selection in Bafana Bafana squad, Ashraf, a lot of players are not going to play in the national team. Only 11 players will play. For example, Pule Mobi, he's been selected for so long, but he's not playing in Bafana Bafana. SuperSport is number 2 from the bottom, which means the team is not doing well. But Pule Mobi has been there, he's been selected, even now he's in the squad. So I don't know what the coach Hugo Bros is trying to tell us. He's supposed to be just quiet and stick with his current squad and leave Kaizer Chiefs alone. This is Bongani from Chatsworth.
Well, I don't know about leaving Chiefs. I mean, there are examples where your team can be poor, but you as a player can stand out for their team. I mean, I think that happens across the world, actually. So it's not always like the best players from the best team. It's what molds a team together. I mean, that's my understanding of it all. Anyway, right, here's another comment.
Hello, Ashraf. Ashraf, I am worried about the next president that is going to take over from Donald Trump after 4 years. He or she is going to have a lot of work of cancelling all these rubbish laws that Donald Trump is busy establishing and signing. I'm really, really worried. As for ambassador for South Africa, the chocolate president, the sweet president, must please send a white man or white woman there for now, because Donald Trump believes in white people. So he must send Helen Zille or Kriel, one of the two, Helen Zille or Kriel. And then after 4 years, remove them and put the right person there. Thank you. Rambo from Cape Town.
After 4 years, remove them and put the right person. Do we have time to put the wrong people there for 4 years? So here's a question once again, right? Who would you like to see appointed as South Africa's next ambassador to the USA? Keep in mind, you're going to have to deal with Donald Trump and his allies in the White House and outside the White House. Who would you like to see? It's either a serious answer or a not so serious answer. Let's hear it. Right, let's get further comments. You see, here's one about an ambassador. Would you put him as an ambassador? Let me get that right.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Tabiso Bloemfontein. I will replace Ibrahim Rasool with Julius Malema. I want to see some richest person in the world. How will he respond to that appointment? Thank you.
Julius Malema as South Africa's ambassador. Would he take the job?
Hola, Ashraf. I think the ambassador just, or should I say former, did push it too far. Zenzi was already working on thin ice where United States is concerned, and it was supposed to be proper for him to use wisdom and do not be emotional on such things. He was supposed to be professional and know what he's there for. You cannot insult the set men of their house and think you will get away with it.
Okay, got that. Keep those voice notes up to 30 seconds, please. I'll take a call in a moment.
Ashraf, good afternoon. It's Ndumiso from Waterfall in KZN. Look, the position of ambassador needs someone with a sober mind and diplomatic prowess. And I feel that good guy, if I may call him, Mr. Musi Maiman, I think he would do a good job. He's capable of telling it like it is, but at the same time, with an acceptable level of decorum, if I may put it. So if maybe they can pull him and put him there, I think we should be okay.
Would he take the job? There's another one, Ambassador. Tim says Ambassador Vusi Thembekwayo. Right, let's get to calls. Thandi in Pretoria. What's your point, Thandi?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It's Thandi here from Pretoria.
Thank you.
My name is short. I think a person like Naledi Pandor, she's got everything what it takes. She can be able to handle Donald Trump. She has the knowledge, very broad. I think she'll be a suitable candidate.
Okay,
Thank you.
I think in the light of what her pronouncements and her position within the ICJ stance would disqualify even South Africa considering. I'm just thinking about that aloud. Anyway, Eunice Eunice wants to comment on Gaza. Eunice, go for it.
Yeah, Ashraf. What is very sad, but the reality is that the after just last night's massacre is that Netanyahu phoned Trump and got the full backing of Trump and told them what he's going to be doing.
I saw that. It was in advance. I did see that, yeah.
Yeah, so then they are equally complicit in this massacre. That's one. Number two is that there's all those female hostages that were released by Hamas. All of them have said publicly that they were not even touched by one Hamas guy. So where is the story of this rapes and what have you that we heard at the October 7th? I mean, if they were there for 1 year and they said they were treated so well by the Hamas captors that they weren't even touched. Can you see the difference?
Well, I have heard, I mean, you're right about nobody's come out and said they've been raped. That I agree. There's been others where they've said they've been very well treated, but there's been others they've said they've been badly treated. Not touched, but badly treated.
Yes, but not even. So in other words, if there was something like rape, they were there kept for 1 year, surely that could have happened in 1 year. I'm just saying this is where the media conveniently leaves out certain things. The second point is, regarding your caller, Mike. Now, this is a challenge I've thrown to him. I heard him on this very station about a year ago saying he's thrown in his lot with AfriForum. Now he's no more a DA supporter. You'll never hear Mike condemning, for example, this massacre in Gaza, what happened there, and he keep talking about Hamas, this terrorist organization. What happened last night was, and today, is a war crime. It's a genocide what's happening there. But challenge Mike to condemn that. I've never heard.
Well,
him say
obviously you've challenged him, and really, I mean, we do have.
And he must say whether he's a member of AfriForum or not, because he said it on the station a year ago.
We'll find out soon.
I heard him and all the other callers.
Let him call in again.
I'd like him to answer
Thanks for that, Eunice.
Thank
right.
you.
Let's see if I can pick up now maybe one more voice note that I can play.
Hi, Ashraf. So Donald Trump and Elon Musk have been preaching freedom of speech through their truth.com, whatever it is, and X and freedom of speech, and you should be able to say what you like. But, as soon as our ambassador said that they were supremacists, then he was no longer allowed to have freedom of speech. So, yeah, very hypocritical over there.
Well, I mean, that's the point that has been made earlier on. So let's say that by the letter of the law that Ibrahim Rasool was undiplomatic. I think, yeah, okay. But was he right in terms of his broader views and broader analysis of where the world is going? I think we could come back and visit this conversation in a year's time and say, you know what? Look what's happened. Think about that. It's 5 o'clock. Here's the news with Greg Hose.
Thank you, Ashraf. In this news update, provisional funding for thousands of students and new findings on human origins. Good day to you. The National Student Financial Aid Scheme says it's provisionally funded more than 600,000 eligible students at various universities for the 2025 academic year. The scheme was giving an update on the status of funding applications for this year in Parliament. The scheme's Wasim Karim.
We have very few applications which are still on review, just 22. We do still have some which are on the verification status, which we are working hard to be able to clear. Some are still being assessed financially and with academic eligibility. The majority we will see are on provisionally funded status, about 670,000 are there. We had about 97,000 rejected applications. We have about 75,000 which are on appeals. Registration data comes in almost on a daily basis from universities. We do have a deadline of the 31st of March for registration data.
More than 36 billion rand has been allocated for infrastructure development in Gauteng over the next 3 years. This was heard during the 2025 provincial budget speech delivered by the Gauteng Finance and Economic Development MEC Lebogang Maile earlier today.
Infrastructure development is one of the key drivers of economic growth and job creation. In the next 3 years, the Gauteng Provincial Treasury will spend 36.6 billion on infrastructure sourced from provincial equitable share and conditional grants. Empirical evidence indicates that most of our infrastructure projects create employment. In terms of education infrastructure, it is anticipated that 13,436 jobs will be created on infrastructure projects in the 2025 MTF, while 12,653 jobs will be created on road infrastructure projects.
A 22-year-old man has been sentenced to 30 years in prison by the George Regional Court in the Western Cape for the rape and murder of a 16-year-old girl. The NPA's Eric Ntapazalila says on the day the crimes were committed, the man had used drugs and alcohol, but that he could still distinguish between right and wrong.
The incident happened last year around the 27th of April 2024, where he broke into the house of the grandmother of his friend, who was a young woman. And he found the young woman into the house and he raped her, stole her cell phone, and when she woke up, he choked her and she passed away. After following his arrest, he confessed to the crime and was linked through a DNA.
The Western Cape High Court has heard that Ayanda Latoni, the boyfriend of the state's Section 204 witness in the Jocelyn Smith case, had left town shortly after the little girl's disappearance. This is the testimony of state witness Laurentia Lombard in the court sitting in Saldanha Bay on the Cape West Coast. She's returned to the witness stand to face cross-examination in the kidnapping and human trafficking trial. Lombard, who testified that Jocelyn's mother, Kelly Smith, confided in her that she sold Jocelyn to a Sangoma for 20,000 rand, is facing questions from Defence Counsel Fani Haramsa. Lombard says that her friend, her boyfriend rather, Ayanda Latoni, has now abandoned his business.
From what I understood, my lord, Ayanda left the car wash and did as is. I don't remember know of anyone taking over the car wash.
In your evidence also, you referred to initially that Ayanda was selling drugs from his house where you were living. Is that correct? Do you remember that?
Because Ayanda, well, who's one saying something? Can you know?
That's correct, my lord.
Scientists in the UK say they found evidence that the genetic origins of modern humans are far more complex than previously thought. Researchers from the University of Cambridge say our species is descended from at least two ancient populations that became separated 1.5 million years ago. The top story, the National Student Financial Aid Scheme says has provisionally funded more than 600,000 eligible students. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Hus.
In your sports this hour, more changes to Bafana Bafana squad and Team South Africa to represent at World Indoors. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N12 eastbound in Germiston has a stationary vehicle after Edenvale Road exit. The N3 northbound in Bedford View queuing on the link to the N12 east at Gillilees interchange. The M1 southbound queuing through Crown interchange towards Boysons and Colette Drive eastbound in Melrose, slow moving at Cross Street. In KZN, the N3 westbound in Camperdown has a stationary truck before Mlaws Road. The N3 westbound in Hillcrest has a stationary truck at Key Ridge, and the N3 eastbound queuing towards Spaghetti Junction. In Cape Town, the M7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound queuing towards the R300 highway. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Kromboom Road exit, and Main Road outbound in Observatory slow moving towards the N2 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 107 FM in Kroonstad.
A convicted murderer on death row, a vicar in a quiet English town, and a maths teacher trapped in a cellar cross paths in the most unexpected way. Jefferson Grief is on death row in an American prison for brutally murdering his wife. But it turns out that Grief has a gift. He can solve crimes from inside his cell. English journalist Beth Davenport needs Grief's help. Janice, a woman who recently helped Beth, has gone missing. The last Beth heard from Janice? A text with a blurry image of a man lunging towards the camera. Will Grief crack the case in time? Exactly how is Janice's local vicar involved? And is it really possible to solve a crime before it is committed? Tune into Inside Man, Monday to Wednesday at 9 p.m. Starts 12 February only on S3. Open up.
Imagine living in a community free from gender-based violence and femicide. That reality is possible, but only if we commit to building families that are free from violence and are inclusive, where children are raised equally. Every child has the right to grow up in a loving, nurturing and safe environment that promotes good mental health. So do not forget about the boy child. He too needs to be protected from all exposures of violence. Pay attention to the boy child today and watch him grow to be a responsible man that society can be proud of. Stop gender-based violence and report any cases of child neglect and abuse at your nearest police station. Or call the Gender-Based Violence Command Center on 0800 428 428. A message brought to you by the GCIS.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So, some important things coming up. We're going to chat just now about the significance of UCT now adding, Xhosa is an official language, as part of the official language policy. That comes up shortly, right? Before that, let's talk about, we had this conversation the other day about the IEC effectively cancelling registrations of the many parties who've registered over the years, and they like virtually dormant. They don't exist, or they don't contest elections. So there's an interesting one regarding the South African Communist Party. Let's get the thoughts of Dr. Alex Mashila, who's the SACP's Central Committee member and the national spokesperson as well. Dr. Mashila, appreciate your time, and you're now live with the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and to the listeners of FAFM.
Thank you. Now, of course, we had this chat the other day with the IEC, and they spoke about, many parties formed that now will be deregistered because effectively they don't exist. Then I think an interesting anomaly came up about, because he made the point that parties that are registered but they don't contest elections may also be dropped off. And then we thought about what happens to the SACP. So what's the position there?
No, the SACP has from 1994 engaged in electoral contests through the ANC-led alliance. We have campaigned for the ANC in all previous elections from 1994, national, local and provincial. It is part of the strategy and tactics we adopted at the time. It dates back to the early 1990s. However, in 2007, the SACP had to register as a political party with the IEC because we were disadvantaged for not registering as a political party. We will then renew our registration with the IEC annually up until now. We did that in April. However, on the 27th of February this year, the IEC notified us that we should have done so this time around on the 31st of January. But in terms of the electoral law, if you didn't do so, you are given notice and you indicate your intentions to continue as a registered political party. If you don't, this may result in the IEC deregistering you. But the SACP, within 3 days after receiving the notice, we contacted the IEC, and we also made them aware that the details they shared with us about the SACP were outdated. But for example, the details of the party leader, now it is Solima Paila. And we updated these details with the IEC in early in 2024, and the IEC published a government gazette when we were also correcting our logo with it. They did write to us to say that after we have alerted them, they did make the update.
Okay, so therefore, the fundamental question is the SACP in danger of being deregistered? And the answer you're going to say is not at all, right?
No, the SACP is not in danger right at all. The IEC will be assessing all other representations after the 24th of March, but we were the first to make our representation within 3 days and to correspond with the IEC. And we did this after the SACP has held a 6th Special National Congress in December 2024, where delegates to the Congress resolved that the SACP must contest the 2026 local government elections. That was actually a reaffirmation of a decision that was refined by the augmented Central Committee of the party in March and April 2024, but the decision dates back to the previous 2 national congresses of the SACP, one in 2022 and the previous one in 2017.
Okay, so just to confirm, so we know you're contesting the local election next year. We understand that. Assuming that you did not contest it for whatever reason, right, would then the SACP have been in danger of losing their registration?
No. The law doesn't allow that. You are in danger of losing your registration under 2 conditions. The first condition is any failure to indicate your continued registration with a political party. The second one is if you are not contesting elections. So let's say the SACP does not renew its registration with the IEC as a registered political party and doesn't contest elections. It will, like the 190 parties, be deregistered if it doesn't do that. But the SACP has written to the IEC to say, no, we are renewing our continued registration with you. And on Saturday and Sunday this past weekend, the SACP held an extended party building commission, which also deals with party campaigns. It was resolved at that meeting that over and above the representation that the SACP has made to the IEC, we must make an augmented representation, making it clear that the SACP will contest the 2026 local government elections, and henceforth the SACP must be invited at all party liaison meetings convened by the IEC across the country, national, provincial, and local.
Okay, I think that's all very clear. No red alert for the SACP. Dr. Alex Mashilo, appreciate your time here on the National Pulse. Right, I think that's all pretty settled. If you don't contest an election, at least make representation to the IEC that you intend to remain a registered party. That's okay, which is what the SACP have done. But as it turns out, they will contest next year's local election. The other 190-odd parties, which dates back to 1994, so I understand, there are many like that who've registered, including the Soccer Party and the KISS Party. And can you remember any other party that has just fallen by the wayside? And what's happened to them? Well, they all now will be deregistered, which actually perhaps even allows you to maybe use that name as well. Did you think about that too? This is the National Pulse.
March is International Women's Month, a time to honor the strength, resilience, and rights of women everywhere. The GBVF Response Fund is sharing a reminder that women's rights are human rights. But today, amidst global and national instability, women's equality is under threat. Now is the time to reclaim our power, demanding fair access to social services and opportunities. Together, from our homes to our communities, let's raise our voices and create a future where every woman and girl can thrive. Because when women rise, nations rise. This is an SABC-supported initiative.
Something big is coming. 6:30 will never be the same. Amalanga Wafani, only on SABC 1.
Join us for the first ever Radio 2000 Annual Family Day in partnership with SABC2 on Saturday, 22 March at the Fat Olive, Pelindaba Road, Lanseria, Johannesburg. Enjoy go-karts, five-a-side soccer, pedal boats, and more. Explore the arts and crafts market and treat your taste buds at our food stalls. And a kids zone will keep the little ones entertained. Gates open at 10 a.m. and tickets start from just 100 Rand at ticketpro.co.za. Follow us on Radio 2000_ZA. Radio 2000. Our music, your memories.
SAFM, setting the nationwide agenda daily. Daily.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
I can tell you what, we set the agenda, but you certainly set the agenda too. In fact, you drive the National Pulse daily by your own comments, whether you text, whether you WhatsApp, whether you call in, whether you tweet on the social media page. I've had like 3-4 people saying Naledi Pandor for ambassador. We've had a few others that are maybe outrageous. We'll go through all of that. Kali Kriel was the first one, remember that. Let's talk about something that is hugely significant. That's the issue of isiXhosa as a language that's going to be used now as an official language at university communications at UCT, right? So how significant is this, and what does this mean for the future at other campuses too? With me is Lance Schultz, who's the CEO of the Pan South African Language Board. Lance, thanks for connecting on the National Pulse. Lance, do I have you there? Okay, just maybe we've lost him for just a moment. Let's see if we can... Lance,
am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you now, Lance. Thanks. That's Lance, right?
Apologies, that's correct, yes, and very good afternoon to you and all of your listeners.
Right, thank you. Lance, first, help us understand what has actually happened regarding the issue of isiXhosa as a language at UCT, just so we fully understand what it means.
All right, so I think there's two respects. The first is in terms of ensuring that we have got language policies at all of our tertiary institutions that recognizes the linguistic diversity, particularly of the people who are speaking the predominant languages, and thereby promoting multilingualism. So I think in this case it really recognizes the prevalence of Afrikaans, English, as well as isiXhosa as dominant languages, and ensuring then that academia makes provisions for the broader demographics within the area. So I think it is very, very progressive, and I think it is something that really does foster equity as well as cultural diversity, so that students from very diverse backgrounds can be thriving in an inclusive academic environment.
So does that mean if a student now wants to go to a lecture, let's say we're talking about a BSc lecture, for example, that UCT would offer, and then UCT has to be able to find a medium of instruction in isiXhosa. Have I got that right?
That would be the understanding, yes. I do think that they would need the time and space so that the programs can mature to ensure that there's 100% coverage in terms of teaching and learning as a medium of instruction in all of the various academic disciplines that the university offers. So I don't want to speak on their behalf, so I think that they will adopt an approach of incrementally ensuring that all of the faculties provides this as a means of instruction. And one of the things I think that's important for this as a medium of communication and learning for these students also, especially in faculties such as health science and engineering, is it really will help these students engage better with local communities so that it bridges the gap between academic learning and real world applications that's going to be required of them. So I believe that we should not expect this to be immediate, but I'm sure that the university has got, in terms of its policy, will put practices in place to ensure that this is rolled out as far and wide as possible.
Okay, and forgive my naivety, but is this the first instance now of what one may call a traditionally white university that's now adopted an African language or a black language now as part of its official policy?
No, they're not the first university. So I must tell you that I also serve on a special advisory panel for the Department of Higher Education and Training, who is responsible for evaluating the language policies, evaluating the maturity of those policies, finding what gaps exist. And we have just concluded the exercise of, let's call it the pilot exercise, of the multitude of universities that have participated in the pilot program. So I can tell you that a number of our universities across the country have ensured that not only adopting the Use of Languages Act, but also ensuring that they they've made provision for the local indigenous languages in particular. I also just want to point out that I think what is very, very progressive at the University of Cape Town is some of the programs that they are really advocating, such as Afrikaans, South African Sign Language, Kukuhuap, and the new language, where we're working with the university to ensure that we capture that language with the last remaining mother tongue speaker. And you might recall that UCT also provided an honorary doctorate to Oma Katrina, who is our last remaining speaker, and we're busy finalizing the orthography and the dictionary work so that corpus is captured for posterity and for generations to come.
This all sounds wonderful. In fact, we'll get a UCT take on this issue just in a moment, right? Just the last thing. I mean, all these things I understand would be a person wanting to be ideally taught in that language in a given faculty. Is there a space for, let's call it a bridging language understanding, and I'm talking about now, I'll say what is Xhosa, right, for example, where even students who are not attending that specific faculty gets to get a basic spoken isiXhosa so they have a better understanding with community?
I would like to believe so. Some of the universities offer elementary courses, especially if it is not mother tongue speakers. And the University of Cape Town have got a very, very strong language faculty. So I do believe that support mechanisms will be there. But I think what's more important here, strategically, is that the university's got this broader effort to decolonize and transform higher education by ensuring that isiXhosa becomes prevalent. And I think this will not only be for mother tongue speakers, but these will be for speakers that would want to learn at the elementary level as well, that might not necessarily be fluent in the language.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time. Let's leave it at that from your perspective. We're going to get another perspective on that just in a moment, right? I wonder, you listening in, what do you make of that? Just these advancements that are taking place with regard to, say, UCT and maybe other campuses around the country, right? So that was Lance Schultz, the CEO of the Pan South African Language Board. Let me now bring in Professor Lolly Makubu-Badenhorst, who's the Director for Multilingual Education Project at UCT. Prof. Badenhorst, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to the listeners, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. I say it actually should be Makubu-Badenhorst to give you your correct surname, right? So tell me, how significant is this from a UCT point of view, and how do you see this then playing out practically?
You must understand that the policy, the multilingual language policy, was approved in December 2024 and it takes effect in January 2025. And, we're not expecting a magic wand whereby everything automatically, immediately will be, into place. As the PANSOP CEO has indicated that, there will be a process. And indeed, the policy that is approved, alongside it, it's got the framework. And that framework, the language policy framework, is for its implementation, whereby now I'm busy doing the road shows, in assisting faculties to come up with the language implementation plans. Each faculty, be it in engineering, be it in humanities, be it health sciences, and so on, so that they come up with the tangible plans, concrete plans in terms of how to roll out the plan in the respective faculties.
So when do you think we'll see actual tangible results? I mean, I understand it has to be developed. What do you think?
Well, the plans must be developed, and before the end of the year, they will be there. But having said that, you need to understand, by approving the policy, it doesn't mean that nothing has been happening about isiXhosa. As we speak, the Multilingualism Education Project, the unit that I'm heading, is offering basic communicative isiXhosa. We call it Masithethe isiXhosa, to both staff and students to bridge that gap. And also some other faculties like your health sciences, your engineering, they've already started process and programs, and they're offering it. For the health professionals, when they go and work in the rural communities and elsewhere, they offer isiXhosa already It's not something that's coming with the policy. It has been happening, and I'm sure that you would have seen in the social media platforms. In 2023 already, the Faculty of Engineering developed an isiXhosa glossary in the field of mechanical engineering. So it does not necessarily mean that, we are waiting. These processes are running parallel.
Okay, that's wonderful. In fact, in terms of these pilot projects you've already had, right, the voluntary ones, and now what we see, what's been the reaction from the student body?
Well, we have the support of the students, and it is actually the students that are driving the process, and some of them, they approach the lecturers and so on. And also in the classroom, the lecturers and the students, whereby before they can even engage in the formal assessment, they have tutorials. We have multilingual tutorials for the students themselves, amongst when they do have group work or group sessions. They do use all these languages. And then we are saying that in the Western Cape, we are focusing on isiXhosa. The students themselves, we use the students as a resource to embrace multilingualism.
I suppose, and here's the last point. It's less about what the language of instruction is in terms of the who, what, when, where, why, but more what's the outcomes of it all. I would think we would start seeing some dramatic changes in terms of the impact of that graduate that graduate then in his or her community or in their workplace down the line, isn't it?
Well, eventually we can start with the short courses, but the whole vision is that once we gradually have initiated, because now we have the policy and the framework, and then once we have the plans, then eventually we would offer all the certain disciplines. We'll start with specific disciplines to offer that in the medium of isiXhosa, and we will then make available the translation and translate all the learning, teaching and learning material into isiXhosa and Afrikaans. The teaching and learning material will be available in all three official languages, but it is a process. We'll probably take some, we'll pilot with certain faculties and then gradually increase, as the CEO has already indicated.
Absolutely. I think we 2 weeks ago, we in fact, part of our Friday Fireside Chat, we spoke to the lecturer, the white lecturer in isiXhosa. Just her name escapes me for the moment. I'm sure you would know exactly who she is, right? And that alone was just so important in terms of understanding this need for crossover. South Africans have to embrace indigenous languages in this country, isn't it?
Absolutely. And also, it cuts both ways. If myself as an academic, I'm speaking to the students whose first language is not English, maybe it's not English, and probably English is their 10th language or whatever language like me. So you can imagine my throughput, my pass rate, my success rate is so low. And amongst other reasons, language is a barrier. So as a lecturer myself, I need to do something about it because I want to see my students performing well academically without them being prejudiced or without being disadvantaged by their languages.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for your time. In fact, the person I was referring to was Dr. Tessa Dowling, right, who had this fascinating chat, and people must listen to that podcast, which we did about 2 weeks ago. It's available. In fact, we'll try and post it again, but go to safm.co.za. Well, appreciate your time, and I think best wishes in terms of the plan. I think that's the type of innovation to community that we must have, and we must accelerate that as well. And on the same issue, I see here's another comment saying, I think the Fireside Chat you had a few Fridays ago with a white isiXhosa lecturer might have touched the pulse of the UCT faculty. I'd like to take credit, but I don't think that's the case. I think this has been planned, as has been heard, in December already, so we know that already. But big up, and I think you're absolutely right around that from someone called Incognito, right? Okay, 5:30 news headlines. Here's Greg House.
Quick look at the headlines. City Power in Johannesburg says it's launched a comprehensive disciplinary and legal process to eradicate fraud and corruption within the entity. The National Student Financial Aid Scheme says it's provisionally funded more than 600,000 students for the new academic year. And the Tanzanian Social Action Fund says it'll always boost cooperation with countries like South Africa. Full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound queuing towards Omonde, Witkoppen Road westbound in Johannesburg North is slow moving towards Market Street. Allendale Road eastbound in Kloekop has delays towards Mastiff Road, and the N4 Witbank Highway westbound in Pretoria has a crash reported before the N1 highway. All lanes are open. In KZN, the N2 southbound in Chatsworth has a crash reported before the M1 Higginson Highway. The N3 westbound has a stationary truck before Mlaws Road. The N3 eastbound queuing towards Spaghetti Junction, and the N2 northbound queuing towards the M25 Commercial Highway. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound slow moving towards the R300 interchange. The N7 northbound is slow moving towards Plattekloof Road. Albert Road outbound in Woodstock is slow moving towards Salt River Circle, and Baden-Powell Drive eastbound slow moving towards Strandfontein Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, to me, you touched on the absence of Kaiser Chiefs players in the Bafana camp team anyway, but they're in camp, Chiefs or not, isn't it?
Yeah, Bafana are encamped, and they were forced to make another change in their side, with Aubrey Mudiba forced to leave the side due to his wife giving birth. Sekhukhune United left back Vuyo Letlapa has been called up as his replacement. Meanwhile, Bafana coach Hugo Bruce has praised the people of Polokwane for their warm reception as the national team arrived in camp for the next two FIFA World Cup qualifiers against Lesotho and Benin. Now, Bafana started the camp yesterday at the ranch just outside Polokwane, with the full complement of the squad having arrived in camp, including Lyle Foster and the return of Percy Tau.
I have to say that for the moment I'm very happy to be here in this fantastic location. It's quiet here, good training pitches, people who knows how to receive a football team. So I think there we can't have any problem on that. Secondly, I think it's a long time ago that we, at the first time of our camp, that 23 players are present. I lie a little bit because there is one player who is not there. It's Aubrey Modiba, but this guy has to do something more important than being on a camp of the national team. So his wife gives birth this afternoon. I think it has to be in the presence of the father. So that's why Aubrey is not there, but he will join us later in the evening. And again, I think those things are more important in life than a qualification game for World Cup.
Meanwhile, Diogo Pearl will take over as coach of Cape Town City for the rest of the season, with veteran Raja Desar enlisted to help him. This is after Machine Etugrol's departure. Pearl has been the long-standing assistant in the club and was previously in charge of two matches back in 2021 when Dutch coach Alder Rekerink was fired before Eric Tinkler took over. With 7 matches of the season left, City owner John Comatas has decided to put Pearl in charge, but brought in Desar as an assistant coach alongside Leboga Manyama. Then in athletics, Team South Africa flew out to Nanjing this morning with 5 SA athletes to fly the South African flag high at the World Indoor Champs this weekend. Akane Simbini will compete in the men's 60-meter, which he is ranked number 2 in the world and highest ranked entrant in the championships. And then Prudence Sekgodiso will compete in the women's 800 meter, where she is ranked 4th. Now, the 23-year-old set a new national indoor record of 1 minute 59.88 seconds in France last month, breaking the mark twice, and now she's determined to lower it even further at the upcoming world event in China.
Wow, the experience was amazing. Like I said, the 2 records, come on. I went there with that mentality of breaking that SA record because it was just 206. So it's been there for nothing. So I broke it and I came back with the SA record, and yeah, now heading to the World Indoor Champs, hoping to break another SA record.
South Africa's other three representatives are Ches Will Johnson, who will be competing in the men's long jump, Chris van Niekerk men's shot put, and Maureen Fourie in the women's 60-meter hurdles. In cricket, New Zealand beat Pakistan by 5 wickets to go 2-0 up in their T20 series. The home side reached 137 for 5 with 11 balls to spare to take control of the 5-match series after Pakistan posted 135 for 9 of 15 overs in a rain-reduced second match. Meanwhile, the Western Province men's team are gearing up for the resumption of the CSA 4-day series this week. The boys in blue have been working hard at training and preparing to face the Titans at the Supersport Park on Thursday at 10 a.m. With key players being available for selection, the team has been looking strong and motivated. Captain Kyle Verreyn says that the team is in high spirits. And then in rugby, Stormers flanker Ben Jason Dixon has been ruled out of the Stormers 2-match URC tour due to surgery. Now, Dixon will undergo surgery on his wrist this week, which ruled him out of contention along with scrum half Stefan, who is recovering from a groin injury. A 30-man Stormers squad left the mother city today for Europe, where the Cape outfit will take the field in Lanelli and Belfast over the next fortnight, and they face Scarlets on Saturday before heading to North Island to take on Ulster at the Kingspan Stadium next Friday. Then finally in tennis, the Players Union, which was co-founded by Novak Djokovic, has began legal action against tennis governing bodies citing anti-competitive practices and a blatant disregard for player welfare. Now, the Professional Tennis Players Association has filed papers at the United States District Court in New York, where it is seeking a jury trial. Now, the 146-page lawsuit says that professional tennis players are stuck in a rigged game which gives them limited control over their own careers and brands, and the lawsuit criticizes the schedule, ranking systems, and control over image rights. On that note, that is a wrap from my side.
Here's a point, and you don't have to answer it because it's a current affairs political point, okay? You know, the World Cup's next year, right? And the World Cup is in the USA, it's in Canada, and it's in Mexico. And the only country missing from that equation is Greenland. I just don't know how Donald Trump's going to manage all of that. Can you just imagine that? What a coincidence, isn't it? Absolutely. Right, more sport? Well, you better say your goodbyes.
Yeah, more sport tomorrow. With that said, ke nna Tumi Kgapele. Modimo.
Sihlangu Negati are in a big search for their first win, while the indomitable Lions want to hold on to the summit of Group D. The bottom of the table clashes with the top. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Experience the joy of African football. Eswatini versus Cameroon. This Wednesday, 19 March at 6 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, Jimmy Moyaha with us. Of course, Jimmy, you host your SAFM market update coming up from 6 to 7. To set the scene, I mean, your big story is about what African Rainbow Minerals.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. It's actually African Rainbow Minerals' smaller sister company, African Rainbow Capital.
Okay, so there's a difference there, right? Okay,
yes.
There we are.
No, both part of the Patrice Motsepe stable, both owned by the South African billionaire, and both very much related companies, except one focuses on mining, the other is an investment company that has been struggling with the discounted valuations that have been causing the share price to trade at quite a bit of a discount. This has become such a serious problem from African Rainbow Capital's side that they have announced today, as part of their updates on their interim results, that they will be delisting from the JSE. So we've got a conversation with the co-CEO of African Rainbow Capital, Johan van der Merwe, to get a sense of what's been happening there. I've been chatting to Johan from time to time on the progress and the performance of African Rainbow Capital. They are, of course, the entity that holds the Time Bank shareholding from that perspective, and a bunch of other assets from an investment perspective. So very interesting delisting at this time, and this is something that I've spoken to African Rainbow Capital about in the past, around that discount that their share price has been trading at. And I've asked them in previous conversations whether or not they would consider unbundlings or delistings. I myself didn't expect that this delisting would happen at this particular juncture, because there was never really an indication that that's a route they wanted to consider. But we're obviously going to speak to them and get a sense of what drove that decision and what finally broke the camel's back, so to speak, around that decision. And then we've also got conversations with the team at Old Mutual and Libstar, or the teams rather at Old Mutual and Libstar. In each case, I'm speaking to the CEOs of both businesses around their full year's results. Both companies gave us full year updates for the years ended December 2024, and we're going to speak to them and get a sense of those performance numbers. And then we've got a conversation with Absa CIB around capital markets. We're looking at the evolving sustainability landscape. There have been a lot of conversations around sustainability and investments in sustainability. We've seen the likes of the European Union come to South Africa, sign agreements with our president for investment into sustainability and to things like the just energy transition. So we're going to speak to Absa about that from a capital markets perspective and take a look at what sustainable finance looks like in this day and age. And then, because it is a Tuesday, we are going to also take a look at a property feature on this week's Tuesday segment. We're going to be looking at the first-time home buyers trends. Some very useful insights from the team at Uber Home Loans around what first-time home buyers are looking for, how banks are viewing first-time home buyers. Interestingly enough, it looks as though banks are not only financing bonds, but they are financing potentially some of the costs associated with transferring properties, because the markets are looking that attractive from a investment point of view. So we're going to look at that and see if we can make sense of all of that. Before we get to that, the markets have had a better day today, especially on the local front. Let's start with international markets. The Hang Seng, the biggest gainer in Asian markets, up 2.3%. The Nikkei, a close second in 1.2% or so in the green. The European markets all in the green. The DAX, the biggest gainer, almost a 4% there. The CAC 40 in France up 0.5% and the FTSE up 0.25%. US markets at the moment, though, are in the red. They started off the day in the red, with the Nasdaq down almost a full 2%, 1.8% or so down, while the S&P was down 1.2%. And if you look at our own local markets, I did say we were in the green. The top 40 up 0.5%. Resources leading the charge there, 2.47% up from resources. Industrials kind of flat, about 5 basis points in the green. And financials also not doing too badly, but in the red, around 0.15%. The all share up 0.4%. That resources number likely boosted by the performance we've been seeing on commodities prices, because the platinum price is at $1,022 a fine ounce. Palladium still below $1,000, disappointingly, at $972. Brent crude etching higher at $71.31 a barrel. We don't like that, especially not for our petrol prices. But again, the biggest mover, gold prices, new all-time highs yet again. We are now firmly above $3,000 a fine ounce at $3,030 currently at the moment. So the sentiment that's playing out in the market, the risk-off sentiment, the concerns that you've been talking about, Ashraf, around the South Africa-US tensions and just the overall perception of how the US is approaching certain conversations at this juncture, fueling a lot of uncertainty within the market and a lot of concern. And that's the flight to safe haven. That's the flight into the gold markets, and that's the reason why you're seeing markets perform a certain way. If we look at the rand as an example against the US dollar, 18 rand and 12 cents there at the moment. 1 British pound will cost you 23 rand 50, 1 euro 19 rand 80, and 1 Australian dollar 11 rand 52. Anyone keeping an eye on Bitcoin, 82,100 odd dollars a fine ounce, 1.48 million. So we're back below 1.5 million on the Bitcoin price there. So markets not liking the risk sentiment at the moment, not particularly enjoying how things are being handled. And if you look at one final example before I go, from a dollar perspective, the euro gaining about 4% against the dollar in this trading session, as did the British pound, similar margins around 3% there as well. So the dollar is weakening against all of the major currencies at the moment, and even weakening against the rand for now. And when we look at that dollar basket, that gives us an indication of the dollar's performance against the basket of currencies that it's compared to. We're now heading closer to that 100 points level, whereas at some point I'd want to say probably around the start of the year we were closer to 110. So we are down on the dollar index I'd say about 5% or so from from the highs of this year. So that's not a good figure. And from all-time highs, probably down another 3% or 3 or 4% there. So definitely not a good point or good place to be for the dollar at the moment. But we'll dig into these stories when we come back a little later on. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Okay, perfect. Enjoy your show, 6 to 7, followed by Sport with Michael Abramson, 7 to 10. In fact, Oliver Dixon hosted the morning show. He reminded everybody that he'll be on tonight at 10 o'clock. How he's going to manage all of that, and I think back again for the breakfast show tomorrow morning. No, but he's going to do it anyway. So listen out and see if he survives that. Right. Okay, let's get a sense of your pulse after this.
For 90 minutes, neighbors will not get along. Bafana Hugo are hunting for 3 points, but Dikwena want to cause an upset. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026 African qualifier. Witness the human rights pitch rivalry between South Africa and Lesotho on Friday, 21 March at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, S3 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us. Because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Call us on 086 000 2032.
Right, so we'll take all your comments because I want to get a sense of your pulse all the way up to the end of the show at 6 o'clock, right? And yes, I did ask you, come on, who would you like to see as South Africa's next ambassador to the USA? You must understand, at some stage, you're going to have to deal with Donald Trump. Yeah, okay. So who would you be? And there's some interesting thoughts around that, okay? But let's get further comments. Still on the issue of Rasool, right? Mfundo in Cape Town, hi.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yeah, go for it. What's your point?
I've got two names in my mind. One is Naledi Pandor. Then the second one is Tony Leon.
So Naledi Pandor, but that's sort of almost diametrically opposites in many ways, right? In terms of the political views around a most significant part of the world, which is the issue of Israel and Palestine.
Yes, that's absolutely. That's why I'm having a second name. Otherwise, if it wasn't an issue of Palestine, I would have said Naledi Pandor. But I know Trump is going to reject based on what he stood up for on Israel and Palestine.
Okay, there we are. Thanks for that contribution. Certainly. Yeah. Got us thinking.
One last one.
Yeah, okay.
Button shots from me.
Yeah.
Mike from Newlands. I'm not sure if I'm going to call the man naive or what. Because when you talk about Ibrahim Rasool and Regati, why is he bringing in qualifications? Because now we're talking about the profile or the title of an ambassador, not necessarily the qualification.
Exactly.
Now, can Mike do the same about who's this DA leader, Steinhays and Blade?
Well, there you are.
He's not doing that. So he must put qualification aside because we're going to reprimand him. Some of us are going to ask Mike, what qualification does he have? So it must not be the issue of qualification. We're talking about title, we're talking about profiles.
Well, you're right. I brought it up and you bring it up again. I think it's a good point, good examples you bring up, isn't it? Thanks for that, Mfundo. And, in that nutshell, you've just showed us why it's important that you, as the audience, play a huge role in driving the national pulse, right? Shata in Cape Town, let's get your thoughts on UCT and language.
Ashraf, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Right, go for it.
Ashraf, this calls for a celebration that we've got our own African language being, inducted in universities. It's a good thing, but we should not be celebrating mediocrity. 30 years after democracy, we're still having these Afrikaners still learning in their language in the universities. Whereas our own people, our Xhosa people, Sotho people, Pedi and everybody else, Zulu in University of KZN, they're still learning English only. That's the only option they have.
But that's a reflection on government, isn't it? I mean, when the president said yesterday, we've messed up regarding early childhood development, we should have done it 30 years ago, that's a reflection on government. And in this case here, the advancement of let's call it indigenous languages in South Africa, or the lack thereof at campuses, is also a reflection of the people in charge. It's true.
But what I'm saying, why should we come with apologies the whole time? It's 30 years after the democracy. That is why these Afrikaners will go to America and they think they are more privileged than us here.
Well, I mean, I get your point. Yeah.
Letting them.
Okay, I get your point. I mean, I think they're two separate issues, but I get your point. I just think, as has been said before, the one thing about the Afrikaner community, they've made sure they preserve their languages in their own way. And really speaking, it is up to, and there are many people, who are Zulu speaking, or isiZulu, or isiXhosa speaking, who've actually now got the money besides government, and they need to assert themselves in terms of establishing institutes that reflect just that. I mean, that's the challenge, isn't it? They do it in other communities too, right? MJ in Gqeberha, go for it. MJ, hi.
Hi there, Ashraf. On the UTT thing, on language, I wanted to just say that I am for the speaking of mother tongue languages, mainly for the preservation of the language. But then I'm not sure about it being taught into university, because I know university is a place where people are going to school learn so that they can get employment. So my question is that if somebody goes to a university, spends whatever money they spend to get a qualification or a degree, where are they going to get employed now with a degree that was taught in Xhosa? Where is they going to be that gain for employment? Because it's not going to be the government, because the government is on English. It's not going to be in the private sector, because the private sector is also on English or Afrikaans. So where is that person going to put that qualification?
Okay. Okay. You raise an important issue. Let's see how society responds to that challenge. In fact, perhaps maybe the campuses would do the same thing as well. MJ, thanks for that call. But either way, you also can't ignore the fact that communities have the right to assert their language, can they? Right? Okay. Let's get on to a range of other issues that we've spoken about. A lot of it on the ambassador story.
Ashraf, good afternoon. I fully agree with the previous caller. President must send anyone who is white, just for now. I think that's the best option. Otherwise, we're still going to have a problem. Thank you. Konkol.
Okay, Konkol. Let me just leave it at that.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I think it's time Mena Lady comes out. We need someone strong there. Must come back into this politics of ours. So I say, let's send Mena Lady Pando there as our ambassador to the USA. She has extensive experience in matters of diplomatic relations. Thank you.
I tell you what, to borrow a phrase that Ramaphosa uses often, I will be shocked if she's appointed. I'm just saying.
I may replace Rasul with Mike from Newlands. Sharp.
That would be something.
Well, it's fine. They removed Ibrahim Rasul. I guess we must appoint Ibrahim Rasul's wife to be the new ambassador. That will be very nice and interesting.
Well, they're all coming back home.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is David from Hammanskraal. I think the next ambassador to the US should be that Freedom Front Plus leader. Who's that? Groenewald, something like that. That old man, that Groenewald guy. I think he's calm and collected, even though he has his own ideologies, but I think he can qualify.
Okay, Rep Peter Groenewald, representing South Africa.
Ashraf, this is a job for a 72-year-old. Let's knock on Mr. Derek Hanekom's door one more time. Ask him to do one more mission for the country. Let's send him to the US.
Oh my goodness, Derek Hanekom. In fact, I had him as a fireside chat guest about 2 months ago. Please listen to that interview. It's really good conversation with Derek Hanekom.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Mujagi Sekhalu speaking from Everton, India Val. I'm trying to think about your question as to who can we appoint as the new ambassador to the US. it's a difficult one because we are having too many political parties here at home with different mandate, different agendas. I'm wondering who could that person be? Thank you, my brother.
Oh, you never gave an answer. I was hoping you will.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I want the president to appoint Mr. Malema. I want him to confuse Elon Musk as well as Donald Trump. Agree here, nothing.
Oh, my goodness. We've got a sense of humor, don't we?
Good afternoon, Ashraf Gada and the listeners of SAFM. The issue of Ambassador, I will put Mwakura Matlodi, the former premier of Limpopo. Thanks. Doni Machaba, Mutokwa Mukumen.
Ramatlodi, let's see. Right, Letu, let's get your thoughts on Rasul.
Hey, Ashraf, how are you?
I'm good indeed. Go for it.
Good, man. I would actually say Sangazazidi, be quite an interesting ambassador to the States. I can see him carrying that diplomacy and being super diplomatic and can be at stern at times. Seems to understand and stand for the country quite a bit. Didn't vote for them though, but just like the fella. And then just on another note, Mike from Newlands, I actually even missed his call, but I can actually kind of predict what it was all about. Mike is actually very tiring, just my hat off to you for being so patient with him, but he can actually really test a person just listening,
Well, there you are. Okay, point noted, right? Thank you for that, Letu in Klabecha. In Boneni and Adele, go for it.
Hi, and I'm running out of time because you're about to dock off. I've got two people that I see they can be good in the United States as ambassadors of the Republic of South Africa. I'm appointing the EFS member, Carl Neos, and then the ANC should be Derek Henekon as one of them. Listeners have already said that. That's my input. But I see Carl Niehaus as one of the
Carl Niehaus, that would be something, wouldn't you? Right, thanks for that. In fact, here's another one, Dr. Imbuyu. Thanks for that call, right?
Thank you.
Another one,
bye.
Dr. Imbuyu Ndlozi for ambassador. He's too busy hosting another dog show at the moment. He's in a new job, madam. Just give the guy some chance to get things going, right? Here's another.
Hi, Ashraf. It's Kanyusu here from Durban. Regarding the ambassador to the U.S., if I were the president, I would either pick Max Sisulu to be succeeded by Ngabayomzi Kwangwa in the long term. I think both gentlemen are very seasoned politicians and who have been in legislature for a while, and they know how to dissipate policy. So that's my opinion.
And I'm just imagining Donald Trump talking about Kwangwa, whatever way he's going to do it. Now, that would be a challenge.
Yeah, Aisha. Good afternoon. Is that Julius Malema? They will show him a door immediately arrive. They say, hey, go back. Immediately, just a second.
You're making me laugh. I mean, how long will he survive there? I mean, I think you're probably right. How long will he survive? Here's another. I've just got time for one or two more. Here we are.
Afternoon, Ashraf and the listeners. This is Magdalene from Bloom. Maile's speech on the budget is one of those presentations we are used to. As long as they don't give us a report back on the previous budget application, how effective it became, then it's one of those presentations, nice speeches. Otherwise, President Ramaphosa could have not been so highly astonished about Johannesburg's situation that it has collapsed. Magdalene from Bloom, thank you.
I still can't believe he was shocked or astonished about Johannesburg, isn't it? Well, I tell you what, I mean, we're going to end the show with this. Here's a thought, right? Thanks, first of all, for the lots of feedback we get. And I really appreciate it, not just on air, but certainly on social media. Just wonderful. You can tweet me anytime and follow me on, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter or the X platform or on Facebook. Do that. But feel free to engage anytime you like about issues. Sometimes we can't quite get to you all the time, and I really am sorry for that. We try as much as we can. But as far as putting the team together, it's myself, it's Fusani who does all the digital work, and then Chemba and Chemba and Keys, who does the production work. And I can tell you now, this show, The National Pulse, cannot happen without a team delivering it every single day. And we try as much as we can to set the highest standards, to say every day we've got to give you something to tune in the very next day. Now, just to show you we have a sense of humor, this is South Africa, of course. Here's another nomination for ambassador.
Yeah, good afternoon, Ashraf and SFM listeners, including your crew. I think Jacob Zuma will make one of the best ambassadors to the United States. Anyway, so that he can just sing freely and maybe get a Grammy somewhere with Michelle Wamene, so that people like Rasul will be given brand new honors, and so that they can make this country, South Africa, great. Thank you, Ashraf. Have a lovely afternoon.
Oh, there we are. Zuma for president. This is the National Pulse. Let's get the news. Here's Greg Coast. It's 6 o'clock.
Thank you again, Ashraf. In this news update, Joburg City Power launches a corruption probe and provisional funding for thousands of students. Good evening. City Power in Johannesburg says it's launched a comprehensive disciplinary and legal probe